So, hey guys, welcome back to my channel. This is part 1 of What If Naruto Loses His Hormone for Anko during the Wave arc. Thank you so much for all the love and support you've shown. I'll keep working hard to bring you great stories. On 100 likes, the next part will be uploaded. Now, let's start the story. Chapter 1. Enter Anko Mitarashi. In the village hidden in the leaves, Hiruzen Sarutobi's attention was on the most recent batch of genin teams. With Naruto's unexpected passing, there were enough genin graduates, eliminating the need to assign an older genin to a team. Regret weighed heavily on his heart as he reviewed the graduates' lackluster abilities. Despite his reputation as a world-renowned teacher, he couldn't help but feel responsible for the decline in standards at the academy after the Third War. His vision of a more inclusive shinobi program came with the compromise of lowering graduation standards, leading to larger classes, fewer teachers, and a steady decline in the quality of shinobi each year. Many graduates would join the Genin Corps to improve their skills. This would allow them to either join a new team with a Jonin Sensei or replace a member of an existing team. He focused on the teams he believed would pass the secondary Genin test. Teammate consisted of students Kiba Inuzuka, Aburam Shino, and Hinata Hyuga, led by their sensei Kurina Yuhi. Kurinai's expertise in Genjutsu would likely not be passed down due to the clan background of her students. She was specifically chosen to lead this group in forming an advanced tracking squad, as this was her first team, and she was very eager to do so. Kurinai had recently attained the rank of Jonin after serving for 3 years in Anbu. She was frequently assigned to hunter squads to locate missing ninjas. As the village's top Genjutsu user, her abilities were crucial in apprehending high-level targets. Since the Third War, the village lacked official hunter nin squads, most of which were wiped out. With Kurinai's experience and her students' clan techniques, Hiruzen aimed to bring back the hunter nin squads in an official capacity within the village. His son, Asuma, would be the sensei of Team 10, where he would teach the next generation of the Amanaka, Nara, and Akimichi clans. This team would be the 14th iteration of the Ino-Shikacho formation, a long-standing tradition among the 3 clans, allowing them to fully utilize their clan techniques. The young team members have big shoes to fill, as their fathers were part of the most successful iteration of the formation. He wished he had more insight into how Asuma would teach them. Hiruzen has always had a strained relationship with his son. It was a natural consequence of him spending most of his life as Hokage and having little time to be a father. Their strained relationship led to Asuma leaving the village and joining the Shinobi Guardians. The experience made Asuma an excellent shinobi, but Hiruzen still regrets letting him go. Maybe if he didn't, they would have a better relationship now. Asuma has long since forgiven him for being absent in his life, but there was still a distance between them that Hiruzen wished he could fix before it was too late. Yet another reason he hated having to retake the hat. Hiruzen cleared his thoughts of his past mistakes and looked toward the last notable team assignment. Team 7 was more of a title than a team assignment. Hiruzen was on the original team with the second Hokage as his teacher. Since his sensei's death, he had put the team number out of rotation to preserve the memory of his old sensei and team. However, when he began to teach his greatest students, he knew they would honor the title. He hadn't long been Hokage when he started to train the Sannin. A feat that would be impossible now. At that time, Konoha was much smaller and didn't require endless bureaucracy to keep it running. If only he knew that he was overseeing the growth and development of 3 of the greatest shinobi ever to grace this world. Their accomplishments in the Second Great War earned them the title of Sannin after their draw with Hanzo the Salamander. Sadly, that was the last time they would fight together. The loss of her fiancé and brother pushed Tsunade into a dark place, causing her to lose hope in life and fall into her worst vices. His once favorite student, Orochimaru, betrayed the Leaf and committed heinous crimes before leaving. Jiraiya, his only remaining loyal student, still blamed himself for not being able to save his teammates from the darkness they fell into. After that, it was hard to imagine that another team would take the title of Team 7, but there was. The next team to hold the title was led by Minato Namikaze, who would later become the 4th Hokage. His students included Kakashi, one of the most accomplished young shinobi in the village's history, along with the black sheep of the Uchiha, Obito, and Rin Nahara. The team was formed during the middle of the Third War when Rin and Obito were genin, and Kakashi was a semi-experienced chunin. This new Team 7, with their unique skills and potential, held the promise of a bright future. After quickly achieving the ranks of chunin for Obito and Rin and Jonin for Kakashi, their potential was tragically cut short by the cost of war. Both Rin and Obito died within a few months of each other, causing Hiruzen much grief. This loss, alongside other factors, led him to end the war early, as he couldn't bear to witness more young and promising shinobi dying in pointless conflicts. As a result of this decision, he retired and handed his position of Hokage to Minato. Minato was never able to name a Team 7 before his death. Since Hiruzen took over the position, he hasn't felt it right to assign the title. He told himself that it was just because he hadn't encountered any promising teams, but he was also scared that the title of Team 7 was somehow cursed. However, that changed as he looked over the 3 student files before him. Sakura Haruno, the top kunoichi, set historical records with her academic grades at the academy. However, her practical grades left something to be desired. Coming from a civilian family, it was doubtful that she had received additional training or guidance in ninjutsu. Naruto Uzumaki was ranked last in the class and didn't even pass the official exam. Despite this, the boy's immense potential was evident as he managed to learn the Shadow Clone Jutsu and defeat a Chunin to graduate. This and his status as the Nine Tails Jinchuriki filled Hiruzen with hopes for the boy's future. Sasuke Uchiha, the last of his clan, was a source of guilt for Hiruzen every time he interacted with the boy. Sasuke had to undergo regular psychological evaluations to ensure his mental well-being. Initially, they used a Yamanaka therapist due to their clan's unique techniques being helpful in therapy. However, Sasuke reacted poorly to mind techniques and refused to continue with that therapist. He only agreed to return when assured that no mind techniques would be used on him. The latest report indicated that Sasuke was not loyal to the village and lacked close relationships with anyone there. His sole focus was avenging his clan. Hiruzen felt a wave of nostalgia as he considered putting together this new team, ignoring the warning bells in his mind. In just a few minutes, he had gathered Kakashi and formed Team 7. However, as the nostalgic feeling faded, Hiruzen examined the team from a more detached, objective standpoint. The decision to create a new Team 7 was not solely based on nostalgia. The village had been without a promising young genin team for a significant amount of time. Konoha's strength had always relied on its most formidable shinobi. While each team member faced their own challenges, there was potential, especially if they had a sensei who could guide and help them mature into exceptional shinobi. Unfortunately, Hiruzen had reservations about whether Kakashi could fulfill that role. Even though he had no doubts about Kakashi's ninja abilities, he was skeptical about Kakashi's teaching skills, especially when it came to training new genin. By the time he was 8 years old, Kakashi had surpassed everyone his age, and Minato, who was his sensei, admitted to Hiruzen that he only provided guidance to Kakashi. Most of Kakashi's development was due to his natural talent and strong work ethic. Kakashi was never traditionally taught or motivated. Early in his life, most of his ambition stemmed from trying to erase his father's shame. After leaving Anbu, Kakashi adopted the lazy persona he has today. He believed it was to honor the late Obito, but it felt more like an excuse to emotionally distance himself from those around him. Hiruzen sat and pondered his options, fully aware of the potential risks. He wanted this team to carry on the legacy of Team 7. However, he also knew that allowing subpar training from Kakashi could lead to their deaths on a misranked mission or the team breaking apart due to chemistry issues. This thought filled him with deep concern. Adding a new Jonin sensei would not be an option. Kakashi was the only one who could train Sasuke when he unlocked his Sharingan, and he had promised Kakashi that he would be the one to train Naruto when he became a genin. The next option would be to assign a personal trainer to each student outside of Team 7. However, that wouldn't be ideal, as it could create unnecessary divisions in the team and disrupt any potential chemistry within the group. The only other option Hiruzen could think of was for another ninja to teach alongside Kakashi, helping him get the hang of teaching genin. As Hiruzen considered potential candidates for the role, he heard a familiar knock on his office door and a small smile appeared on his face. "Come on in," he said loudly enough for the person behind the door to hear. "Hey, what's up, old man?" Anko Midarashi stepped in. She had one hand in her tan trench coat and a partially eaten dango stick in the other. Hiruzen was not supposed to give preferential treatment to ninjas, but since retaking the position of hokage, he allowed himself the luxury of not caring about concepts like favoritism. Anko returned from Orochimaru as a broken mess. Many in the village viewed her as a traitor and wanted her ninja status revoked. Hiruzen was often criticized for his sentimentality. However, when he looked at Anko, he didn't see a rogue ninja who left with the Leaf's biggest traitor, he only saw a scared girl manipulated and discarded by his pupil. Hiruzen stood firm and ordered that no punishment be given to Anko and that her status as a ninja would remain safe. The initial period was difficult. When she first returned, Anko was angry and confused. She would frequently visit his office after clashing with other ninjas in the village or to address teammates' complaints on missions. He even made her angry when he denied her entry into the interrogation and torture unit. He knew why she wanted to join the Special Jonin and Jonin. Special Jonin and Jonin promotions were decided by the Shinobi Council, which included elite Jonin, clan heads, advisors, and the hokage. Twice a year, during these meetings, they would vote on promoting Chunin to Special Jonin and nominate Special Jonin for the next Jonin exams. The only types of promotions that weren't voted on were promotions given by the heads of specific departments in Konoha. One of these departments was the torture and interrogation unit. Anko was furious with him. She yelled at the top of her lungs in his office and called him every name in the book. Before he could explain himself, Anko barged out of his office and didn't speak to him again for months. Hiruzen was confident that he had made the right decision. He believed that Anko, who was emotionally unstable, would only worsen after taking a position in T&I. Fortunately, a few years later, she was able to come to terms with her lack of memories and trauma. The conflicts and reports ceased, and she even received a promotion to special jonin. However, for the past few years, she has been stonewalled from any further promotion. During each council election cycle, the same issue would arise for her. They would bring up her past altercations and reports from years ago to deny her promotion and ask her to continue demonstrating good behavior and improving her skills. Nonetheless, Anko has taken it in stride in the past few years. Hiruzen knew being recognized by the village was crucial to her, but he was glad to see herself in a much better place. Over the years, he began to see Anko as the daughter he had never had. Anko would often drop by to chat or have tea, giving Hiruzen a welcome break from his hokage duties. "What do you need, Anko?" he asked, looking up from his papers. Anko leaned back in her chair dramatically and placed a hand on her forehead. "Oh, you wound me. Can't your favorite ninja come visit you to catch up?" Hiruzen stayed silent and simply stared at Anko. "Okay, you got me. I spent too much of the ryo from my last mission and now I don't have enough for rent next week." Anko put her head in her arms on the desk in exasperation. "Could you please assign me to a team about to go out on a mission? I checked the mission desk and the solo missions don't pay enough or take too long." Hiruzen sighed in exasperation. It was not unexpected to see Anko barging into his office, pleading for missions to pay off her debts. "Anko, you're a grown woman now. I can't keep giving you special treatment and interrupting mission assignments. You just did a B rank last week. How did you already spend all of it?" Anko rubbed the back of her head, reminiscent of a certain blonde. "Well, you see, I was at the bar and Gemma bet me that I couldn't make the leaf symbol with Senbin while drunk. I told him I could, so we bet on it, but it turns out he was right. I accidentally dropped one of the Senbin and it broke a bottle of expensive whiskey, so I had to pay for the bottle and Gemma." Hiruzen shook his head as his hand reached for the desk piled with the upcoming missing assignment, and then he froze. A brilliant thought came into his mind, and he was reminded why he had titles such as Professor and the God of Shinobi. "Anko, how would you like a more permanent source of income within the village?" "What do you mean?" Hiruzen 3 case files across the desk. "How would you like to be the co-sensei of Team 7? Anko walked the streets to her apartment, wondering how she ended up in this position. Starting tomorrow, she would teach a bunch of fresh brats with a copy ninja. She couldn't refuse the offer, considering the benefits the hokage had laid out. She would get weekly pay that averaged out more than her usual monthly income, priority access to jutsu scrolls from the Jonin library, and guaranteed promotion to Jonin if at least 2 of them advanced to Chunin in the next 3 years. The old man had always been a shrewd negotiator, and Anko couldn't help but wonder what he was really after with this arrangement. Anko's mind was at ease when it came to the genin. She understood that, no matter how unique they might be, they were still just children, lacking the experience of the shinobi world. Her main source of intrigue was Kakashi. She had only crossed paths with him a few times, their conversations fleeting and superficial. From what she heard from Kurenai, who was admittedly biased since she disliked the man, he was a lazy pervert who walked around like he didn't need to be professional like everyone else. Though that didn't bother Anko, she wasn't the picture-perfect definition of professionalism regarding shinobi. She had asked Gemma about him when conversing about his old Anbu days, since it was an open secret that Kakashi was an Anbu captain. Gemma said he was no nonsense and focused entirely on the mission. Still, what surprised Anko was that Kakashi had a 0% fatality rate on missions he led while in Anbu. Anybody who served under him had nothing but respect for him. This was in stark contrast to his current persona, which Anko found puzzling. She couldn't help but wonder what had changed and why. But Anko was determined. The next day, she had to meet with him and the hokage before they met the genin. She was ready to unravel the mystery of Kakashi. Anko was fuming. She knew Kakashi had a reputation for being late, but the meeting was supposed to last 3 hours, and they were supposed to pick up their team an hour ago. Now here she was, sitting in a chair in the corner of the hokage's office, arms crossed, brows furrowed, like a kid waiting for a doctor's appointment they really didn't want to go to. Anko let out a breath of frustration. How long is this asshole going to take? Hiruzen gave a wry smile as he was going through his piles of paperwork. Without looking up, he said, "I believe that's the 3rd time you said that in the last 15 minutes. Before Anko could respond, the office door opened and a masked face peeked inside. "Yo, sorry, am I late?" Anko was speechless at the sheer audacity to ask such a question. She thought the rumors of him being ridiculously late were exaggerated. but it looks like they weren't lying. It's fine, Kakashi. Go ahead and come on in. Hiruzen said as he leveled Kakashi with a smile. He then looked over and motioned with his head for Anko to introduce herself to her new partner. Anko, casting away her annoyance and dredging up the tiny wisps of professionalism in her soul, stood and held her hand toward Kakashi. Hello Kakashi, I'm special, Jonin Anko Mitarashi, working with you will be an honor. Kakashi gave her hand a bored look and said. Yeah, I already knew that. We even talked a few times before, do you not remember? Anko's facade of politeness quickly fell, and anger came across her features. Okay, listen here. It is one thing to show up 2 hours late, but it is entirely another to have the first thing you say to me be rude. And I don't consider passing each other on the street an introduction. Kakashi shrugged. Before Anko could continue to vent her annoyance, Hiruzen coughed. When they both looked over, he gestured toward the 2 seats in front of his desk. Go ahead and take a seat. We have much to discuss. Anko crossed her arms and took her seat, while Kakashi sat down in a relaxed pose, both hands in his vest pockets. Kakashi was the first to speak. I didn't think I would be assigned any missions until after I gave the genin the test. Hiruzen was confused about Kakashi's lack of knowledge of the current meeting. Oh, did you not get the letter delivered yesterday? I assigned Anbu to deliver it personally. Kakashi rubbed the back of his head. Well, I was going to read it when I got home, but you know how Ninkin are once they get a hold of something they think they own. Anko and Hiruzen sat there, shocked that Kakashi would use the "my dog ate it" excuse for a letter from the Hokage. Hiruzen sighed. Well, if you read the letter, you would have known that I am assigning Anko as an additional teacher with you for Team 7. Kakashi's eye widened in surprise. That's quite unusual for a squad to be given 2 capable ninjas to train them. Is there something special about this team? You haven't even looked to see what students you will be assigned yet, have you, Kakashi? Hiruzen questioned. Kakashi gave an eye smile. Nope. Hiruzen shook his head, and Anko rolled her eyes. Hiruzen then performed discreet hand signals, and the Anbu present in the office left. He reached under his desk and began to channel chakra into a hidden seal. Black lines stretched across the room, covering the walls and the doors. The window then darkened, and the natural light from outside vanished, leaving the only light in the room being an overhead fixture on the ceiling. Anko was surprised by the precautions the Hokage just took. They were just talking about a bunch of genin. She then adjusted her posture and began to focus. This would be a much more severe meeting than she initially thought. Hiruzen then took his hat, revealing his gray hair, and ran a hand through it. He then began to speak. Kakashi, as you know, the assignment of Team 7 means a great deal to me, but sentimentality is not the only reason I wish to give this team special treatment. The village after the Nine Tails attack and the Uchiha massacre has never been weaker since its creation. Both Kakashi and Anko looked surprised at his statement. They both knew the leaf wasn't near the peak of its powers, but hearing the Hokage describe it so grimly was alarming. Hiruzen continued. We may have the advantage of numbers, and the economy has never been better, but in the past, we remained the strongest of the hidden villages due to the strength of our shinobi. In the last war, we lost some legends and many with great potential. Kakashi looked down at that, remembering how much loss the third war had caused him. And with my wayward students no longer in the village, the death of the fourth, and Itachi's defection, the leaf wouldn't survive if another war broke out. In the village currently, there are only 4 shinobi that I would consider S rank. That would be me, Danzo, Guy, and you, Kakashi, but that is me talking about you from your Anbu days. I know since then, you have let your skills deteriorate. I would also consider my student Jiraiya in that category. Still, in the case of a sudden attack on the village, he wouldn't be able to get here in time to prevent great damage. Kakashi looked down in shame. He knew he wasn't as skilled as just a few years ago, but it hurt worse when it came from a man you respected. Hiruzen noticed the sadness in Kakashi's body language and continued his explanation. And when we look at the last 5 years of fresh genin, only one genius has any potential of reaching such a level. Niji Hyuga, but Guy tells me his darkness and pride hold him back even then. If we don't produce any ninja of note within the next several years, the other villages will see it as a sign of us losing strength. They then may take it as an opportunity to strike. Hiruzen closed his eyes, considering if he should say the following words. I won't live forever, and I fear the leaf will fall with me once I die. Kakashi and Anko had somber expressions, understanding where the Hokage would go next. But this team, I want to create ninjas to lead the leaf into the next era. Naruto is a great young man who can become a great leader if he matures, not to mention his status as the Nine Tails container. This path is the only way Sasuke will remain loyal to the village. His only desire is to gain strength for his revenge. He doesn't care how he gets it, meaning he could be easily tempted to leave the village at the promise of power, so it would be good for us to be the ones to give it to him. and Sakura, despite lacking the physical skills of a ninja in the academy, had similar academic scores to your sensei Kakashi. That last statement shocked Kakashi since he knew how much of a genius his teacher was even in his youth. Anko began to feel anxious as she analyzed the Hokage's implication when describing the purpose of her new task. Was the third really expecting her to teach the next fucking Sanin? Anko was confident in her abilities but had never taught genin before and would not know where to start. "Hokage, sir," Anko said, clearly anxious. "I understand the situation and what you wish Kakashi and I to do. But are you sure that I'm the right person for the job? Surely, there are better people qualified to teach this team than me. I mean, I have never even taught anyone before." Hiruzen gave Anko a pensive look. "Anko, I know you still go to the orphanage at least once a week." Anko flinched at the call out. "I get letters of gratitude from the head of the orphanage. Despite your visits only being weekly, she says the kids learn a lot from you." Kakashi was surprised and looked at Anko out of the corner of his eye. He noticed she had a slight blush on her cheeks from embarrassment. "But that stuff is easy. Teaching kids how to write their names and basic math is different from teaching ninja teens fresh out of the academy." Anko tried to reason, still unsure if she was capable of such a task. Hiruzen sighed. "Well, that's okay. I probably should have told you more about it yesterday before you accepted." He then covered his mouth with his hand to hide a slight smirk. But to guess that the great Anko Mitarashi would be scared to teach genin, who would have thought? Hiruzen faked a thoughtful look. Anko felt anger rise inside her. "Hey, I didn't say I was scared of them, just that I wouldn't know how to teach them," Anko retorted. "Oh, so you're saying you couldn't teach them? That is a surprise. I thought maybe they could learn a lot from great ninja like you. As you often claim," Hiruzen said before smoking from his pipe. Anko narrowed her eyes and gave the Hokage a look. "Are you saying I can't teach them, old man?" Hiruzen shrugged. "You said it yourself but wouldn't know how to teach them. Don't worry, though. I'm sure Ibisu wouldn't mind a few extra students under his belt." "Ibisu?" Anko shouted in disbelief. She then yanked the case file off of the desk. "There is no way that a four-eyed bastard will be able to train those brats to the level you want." With a newfound determination, Anko declared, her voice filled with conviction, "I'll take them under my wing. I'll shape them into the finest ninjas. Let's go, Kakashi." She then opened the doors to the office and went toward the academy. Hiruzen then leaned back into his chair and put both arms behind his head. "It's too easy," he said as his pipe dangled out of his mouth. Kakashi sighed as he got up from his seat. "You know you could give me a warning next time you spring something like this on me." "I did, but your dogs ate it, remember?" Kakashi gave a light chuckle and then said. "I guess this means I can't fail them then?" Hiruzen nodded. "Yeah, but that doesn't mean you have to take it easy on them, make them take the test as often as you have to before they get it." Kakashi bowed lightly. "Have a great day, Hokage, sir." He then began to make his leave for the academy. Naruto harumphed as he looked at the clock to see that his new teachers were 2 hours late. There were only so many times that Naruto could try to talk to Sakura only for her to yell at him to sit down and for her to go back and keep staring at that bastard Sasuke. Naruto still wondered what all the girls saw in him. He dared not get close again for further analysis to avoid repeating what had happened earlier. Naruto cringed at the thought, hoping his new teachers could teach him a new cool jutsu to forget about kissing the bastard. Naruto looked at the clock again and narrowed his eyes. He then got out of his seat and began walking toward the board at the front of the classroom. "What are you doing, Naruto?" Sakura said, annoyed that Naruto was interrupting her favorite pastime of Sasuke watching. Naruto grabbed a chalk eraser and began dragging a chair toward the door. "I'm about to teach our new sensei a lesson and prank them." Sasuke stirred out of his apparent trance and spoke for the first time since Team 7 was left alone. "They're jonin', you idiot, they won't fall for a prank like that." "We'll see," Naruto said as he placed the eraser on the door, finishing the setup for his prank. Not too long after, the door opened and the eraser fell on top of the head of Naruto's target. A woman with purple hair tied up in a spiky ponytail stood in the doorway. She wore a fitted mesh bodysuit covering her from her neck down to her thighs. Over that, she wore a tan trench coat with a purple inseam and a pocket on each side, a dark orange miniskirt, a dark blue belt, and pale gray shin guards. All the genin had the decency to blush lightly at the provocative outfit their presumed new sensei wore. Anko heard nothing but static as she looked down at the chalk eraser on the ground. She then realized she probably had flakes of it in her hair. While Anko will admit she didn't take good care of her hair like she probably should, she prefers chalk-free. Anko shook her head, cleared her thoughts, and accepted the grim reality of what happened. She had no words. A group of fresh academy brats pranked her Anko Mitarashi, apprentice of a Sannin and one of the best infiltration specialists in Konoha. Tears almost fell as Anko felt her pride shatter and lost hope in looking fabulous and badass in front of her new students. Anko heard a laugh coming from the one in the orange jumpsuit next. "Got you, good sensei," Naruto said, laughing. He was happy that his prank was a success. Depression gave way to anger, and the next thing she knew, she took action. She was across the room at a speed that none of the genin could see, and the next thing they saw was Naruto pinned to the wall with Senbon and the chalk eraser stuffed into his mouth. Naruto spat out the eraser and began to spit out the chalk in his mouth before yelling. "Hey, what's the big idea, you pervert?" Naruto yelled, still spitting out the chalk flakes in his mouth. A tick mark formed on Anko's head as she yelled back. "Who are you calling a pervert, you brat?" "You, because only a pervert would show up to a school naked." Naruto tensed up as a Senbon launched toward him and landed beside his head. "First off, I'm not a pervert. Secondly, I'm not naked. This is a heavily reinforced fishnet bodysuit. And finally, I think you should be the last person criticizing anyone's fashion choices." Naruto stopped and momentarily thought about Anko's last statement before he realized she had insulted his jumpsuit. "Hey, I'll have you know that this beauty is probably the most stylish piece of clothing you'll see in Konoha." Everyone in the room stared blankly at Naruto. Anko shook her head and sighed. "You know what, I'm done. Just meet us on the roof to give introductions." Anko then performed a single hand sign and disappeared into a cloud of purple smoke. "Naruto, you idiot, you made us look bad to our new sensei," Sakura admonished. "Well, how was I supposed to know one of our teachers was a crazy pervert?" Sakura rolled her eyes and looked away from Naruto. "Anyway, Sasuke, why don't we head to the roof?" To Sakura's surprise, Sasuke was already halfway out the door when she looked up. "Wait up, Sasuke." Sakura quickly got up to chase after him. When both his teammates left the room, Naruto yelled after them. "Hey, Sakura, can you help me down?" He received no answer. Naruto's face fell, and he attempted to wiggle off the wall. As the genin arrived on the roof, they saw Anko sitting on the railing, clearly annoyed. Beside her was a man, taller and with a mask and headband covering 3/4 of his face. He looked up from his book and motioned for them to sit down in front of him. Once they all sat, he closed his book and began to speak. "Okay, first off, you guys should introduce yourselves." "What should we say?" Sakura asked. "Well, stuff like your hobbies, future dreams, and stuff like that." "That's way too general," Anko cut in. "So what do you suggest?" Kakashi said as he smiled in her direction. Anko put 4 fingers up. "Tell us 4 things. Your name, why you want to be a ninja, what type of ninja you want to be, and where you want to be in 10 years. Anko mentally patted herself on the back. Last night, she skimmed through a few books on how to teach genin, and the loose understanding she got was that focused questions were the best way to learn about motivations and passions in the ninja profession. "Hey, could you guys tell us about yourselves first?" Naruto asked. "Sure, my name is Kakashi Haddock. I became a ninja for many reasons. I specialize in many areas, and in 10 years, I don't know where I want to be." Everyone blanched at the evasive introduction. Anko coughed lightly and began hers. "My name is Anko Mitarashi. I wanted to be a ninja to prove that an orphan could become a great ninja despite their birth. I specialize in infiltration and combat, and my skills consist of trap making, poisons, ninjutsu, and so on. In 10 years, I hope to be an elite jonin of Konoha and wish to take down those who have betrayed the leaf." Naruto smiled brightly at hearing his teacher's introduction and began his. "My name is Naruto Uzumaki. I want to be a ninja, so everyone will acknowledge and respect me. I want to be the most baddest ninja, with jutsu to bring down mountains in 10 years. Naruto gave a slight dramatic pause. "I will become the Hokage, just you watch." Sasuke grunted in displeasure. Sakura rolled her eyes at the very repeated and known dream of one Naruto Uzumaki. Anko laughed lightly and smiled at Naruto. "Well, kid, when you become Hokage, just make sure I get a lot of vacation time." Naruto was slightly shocked at her response to his dream, but he immediately smiled, gave her a big thumbs up, and yelled. "Yeah, you will, but don't think I would let you slack off just because you were my sensei." Anko then gestured to Sakura to start her introduction. Sakura straightened out her dress and spoke. "My name is Sakura Haruno." Sakura paused, thinking of the reason she wanted to be a ninja. In truth, it was because Ino inspired her so much. She followed her to the academy so she wouldn't be left behind. Still, since the dissolution of their friendship, her reason switched to wanting to be close to Sasuke. Realizing that saying either of those reasons would not send a good first impression to her teachers, Sakura gave a generic answer. "I want to be a ninja to make my family proud. I'm not quite sure what type of ninja I want to be in 10 years. She looked over to Sasuke and blushed. "I want to have a successful career as a ninja, get married, and have kids." All eyes turned to Sasuke as they waited for him to begin his introduction. "My name is Sasuke Uchiha. I want to be a ninja to honor my clan. I wish to be elite in many skills, but I want to be unmatched in combat. And within 10 years, it is my hope, no certainty, that I will have killed a particular man." There was a brief moment of silence before Kakashi spoke. "Well, now that we know each other. You guys will show up to training ground 3 at 7 AM tomorrow for your genin test." "Wait, I thought we were already genin, we passed the academy and everything," Sakura exclaimed. Anko shook her head. "No, you guys just graduated from the academy. You don't become official genin until you pass our test." "Hey, that's not fair, we spent years learning just not to pass," Naruto yelled, his two teammates supporting his statement. "Life is not fair, kid, we do this because most genin out of the academy aren't ready to be ninjas. If you fail, you can return to the academy or join the genin corps." "What is the genin corps?" Sakura asked. "Well, it's mainly made up of older genin and those who wish to fill slots left on incomplete teams. They do the bulk of the D ranks around Konoha. To be blunt, it's full of those who weren't good enough to be real ninjas," Anko said. "Well, there's no way I'm going there," said Naruto. "Well then, don't fail the test. Then you won't have to, by the way, don't eat breakfast. If you do, you'll throw it all up. See you guys tomorrow." Kakashi body flickered away from the roof. Anko performed a mock salute. "Well, good luck, brats. You are going to need it to survive the test." Anko then performed the same hand sign and disappeared in a cloud of purple smoke. Anko and Kakashi watched from a nearby rooftop as the genin went their separate ways. There is no way they will be stupid enough not to eat breakfast. Kakashi smiled. "You would be surprised, plenty of people just blindly follow authority figures, even if said authority figure is a strange masked man whom they met only minutes before." Anko shook her head. If the kids fell for such a blatant lie, they would need to be taught more than she initially thought. Anko suddenly realized she had no idea what the test was going to go over. "Oh yeah, so how are we going to test them? Is there anything I need for tomorrow?" Kakashi turned to her and replied. "No, you don't, the test is a Team 7 staple. I assume you heard of the bell test." Anko thought for a moment. She had vague memories of her sensei telling her briefly about it in the few moments he talked about his past. "It has something to do with teamwork, right?" "Yeah, the goal is to grab a set of bells, but I muddy the waters by saying that only 2 of them can pass and the other one is sent back to the academy. The goal is to see if they would sacrifice for their teammates." Anko pondered the goal of the test, it sounded like a nonsensical way to test a genin team. "I know teamwork is important, but shouldn't we focus more on their actual skills and potential? I mean, we have to pass them anyway." Anko knew teamwork was vital for Leaf Ninja. Still, in her experience on missions, as long as the team could communicate with each other professionally and have abilities to complement each other, then the team was perfectly functional. However, in her career, she had never been part of a team for multiple missions. She primarily went on solo missions and only did team missions when her skills were needed. She also never had a genin team since she was taken out of the academy early to become Orochimaru's apprentice. So, this would be her first long-term team in her life. Those skills can be taught, but being willing to sacrifice to save your teammates is a quality that makes a good shinobi. A shinobi with no loyalty is not a shinobi, they are a weapon," Kakashi said. Anko nodded. She valued loyalty above all else and saw nothing wrong with instilling the same values in their students. "Okay, I got it, so what's my role in all of this?" Anko asked. "I thought you could be more of an observational role while I conduct the test." "Wait, do you mean just watch them and evaluate their skills? You could do a better job since you will fight them." "Yeah, but when I do this test, I read and pretend to look disinterested, it destroys their egos and makes them angry." Anko chuckled. "So you saying you might miss something while you bully them?" "Exactly." "Well," Anko said as she got up from her sitting position. "I'll go ahead and head home. By the way, do you have a schedule laid out for the training after tomorrow?" Kakashi's eye closed and he gave a smile, which, in Anko's opinion, must look creepy under the mask, but he pulled it off well. "Nope, I didn't even plan on passing a team before this morning." Anko shook her head and sighed. "I'll come up with something tonight. If we want to make those brats into real ninjas, then we can't slack off. I'll see you later, Kakashi." She waved and started to jump across buildings to her apartment. Kakashi looked after her disappearing figure and thought about his new co-teacher. Despite Kakashi's lazy reputation since he left Anbu, he was still observant. As one of the best and most senior jonins in Konoha, he had a vote on who would be nominated for the jonin test. Despite never attending these meetings and never voting, he viewed the potential candidates, or at least the ones that interested him. Anko had been in the pool for several years and he was slightly surprised every time she wasn't nominated. She had a near-perfect mission success rate from his memory. She was among the top in infiltration and assassination missions. Yeah, it was obvious that she wasn't being promoted because Orochimaru was her teacher. However, he didn't think that most people still held that against her. However, besides his knowledge of her mission record and brief interactions with her, he didn't know the woman until today. His first impression of her was that he respected her. While high energy, she was intelligent and began to analyze the students' answers intently throughout their introduction. Although, it seems he probably won't need to teach just the genin value of a team. Tomorrow will be interesting, thought Kakashi as he closed his book and began toward his apartment. Chapter 2. Worse than a grudge. Anko watched, hidden amongst the trees, as the genin waited on the training ground. Naruto had fallen asleep with Sakura not too far behind him. Sasuke had taken to doing occasional stretches and some weapons practice. Still, he just sat in the shade of a nearby tree after a while. The silence between them broke when their stomachs growled in sync. I can't believe they listened to him and didn't eat breakfast, Anko mumbled to herself. Anko reached into her trench coat and pulled out a pocket watch. It was almost 9 a.m. and she wondered what was taking him so long. She sensed his faint chakra signature near the training ground when she arrived. She assumed he was just setting some things up for the test, but he'd been there for over 2 hours. Growing impatient, she decided to see what he was up to. Anko jumped through the trees toward the direction she felt his chakra signature. When she arrived, Kakashi stood before a large stone with names carved throughout. Anko recognized it as the memorial stone. She never really had a reason to come here, since she never had any close comrades die in the field. She saw him looking intensely at the stone. Anko hesitated, feeling like she was interrupting something personal, and began to jump back into the trees toward the training ground. Yo Anko. Kakashi didn't raise his voice, but Anko heard him well enough because they were in an open clearing with little noise. Taking the greeting as permission to walk forward, she went closer before replying. Hey, I just wanted to see what was taking you so long. I didn't mean to interrupt whatever you're doing. No, it's fine. I was just about done anyway. Anko, still feeling awkward, tries to exit the conversation. Well, I'll see you back with the brats. Before she could walk away, Kakashi asked her a surprising question. Why did you agree to do this? Anko looked back at him with confusion. What do you mean? To train the genin, I assume you'll be with us full time. So, what made you accept teaching them? I don't exactly see you as the teaching type, you don't exactly scream patient with children, Kakashi said bluntly. Anko felt insulted by that statement. Well, what do you know about me anyway? As soon as the words left her mouth, Anko realized they were more aggressive than she had intended. Kakashi raised both of his hands in a disarming fashion. Well, not much, I guess, I just thought with how you present yourself, you wouldn't take the role of Professor Anko. Do you have a problem working with me, Haddock? Kakashi shook his head. No, not at all. I'm quite glad, actually. I'm sorry if it came off as if I was insulting you. I'm just curious about your reasons. I haven't taught outside of Anbu, and I think seasoned Black Ops operatives are a little more independent than 12-year-olds. Anko gave a small laugh. The tension left her body, and she realized he wasn't taking any shots at her character. Well, at first, I thought it was ridiculous, but the more I thought about it, the more fun it seemed. It's not like I was doing anything anyway, the only thing that prevents me from going out on higher ranking missions and proctoring the exams. And this is the best chance for me to get a promotion in the near future. Kakashi nodded. Yeah, I wouldn't even know where to start teaching them. I was at the level they were at when I was 6. Anko rolled her eyes at the not-so-subtle brag. Is that why you're such a lazy ass now to make up for lost time? Anko didn't think much about the jab, but it seemed to strike home for Kakashi as he got a faraway look in his lone visible eye. Maybe I am. He turned around and took a long look at the memorial stone. Anko, sensing the end of the discussion, decided to make her leave. Well, I see you back with the brats, don't make them wait too long. Kakashi didn't answer, looking at the stone as Anko returned to the training ground. The noise of the bell going off signified the end of the test. Anko shook her head. She looked down at her notes on each of the genin, quickly analyzing what she had written. Sakura did the worst of the three. While she had a decent hiding spot from the beginning, it looked like she had no idea what to do afterward. She made no strategy plan, only watching and reacting when Sasuke moved. While she wanted to dock her points for failing to see through a low-rank Genjutsu, Anko knew the academy barely touched on the subject. Depending on what illusion Kakashi drugged up, it's unsurprising for someone who has never been put in one to faint. Naruto had the same issue as Sakura with no planning or strategy. His first engagement with Kakashi left a lot to be desired, his taijutsu was sloppy and unbalanced, and he was attacking with no purpose other than to hit Kakashi. Anko was very surprised when Naruto pulled out the shadow clone jutsu. She knew from her talk with the hokage that he used it to defeat a chunin, but it was still surprising. The clones were uncoordinated. but it could have been effective against lowered skilled opponents. Anko didn't even see the kid sneak his clone around Kakashi until he was a few feet away, which showed that he was at least capable of stealth. Sasuke was far and away the most impressive. He showed solid and adaptable to jutsu and skill in traps and throwing weapons. He also analyzed Kakashi from the start and struck out at Kakashi when his defenses appeared to be the lowest. The most impressive showing was his elemental jutsu. As far as Anko knew, she didn't think he had personal trainers. So, learning a technique like the Great Fireball with no guidance at his age was truly impressive. As she looked down at the section of her journal, which was supposed to be used to judge the team's teamwork, Anko realized it was almost empty. The only note she had was when Sasuke stayed to see if Sakura was okay when she passed out after seeing Sasuke's head in the ground. Besides that, the genin only briefly stayed together after the test started. Anko bemoaned internally. If they did this bad at finding the point of the test, then it might be a while before they can begin training. Anko spotted Kakashi and the genin in the clearing. She stopped in a tree hidden from sight and caught the end of Kakashi's lecture. And to remind you again, if you feed Naruto, you will all fail. Kakashi body flickered away, appeared next to Anko in the tree, and began speaking without pause. So, anything I missed? No, they just suck, but you already knew that since you were the one kicking their ass. You don't have to be so mean, Anko. You know it's true, Sasuke was the only one who showed advanced skills. Naruto's shadow clones were impressive, but he is below average outside of that. And I could barely evaluate Sakura before she passed out. It makes me wonder what the hell they are taught in the academy. Anko said, exasperated by the team's performance. Yeah, most graduate students are only skilled in the basics. That's why I haven't taken a team since I was qualified to have one. Kakashi said, sharing Anko's sentiments. Even so, that just means that we have to work our asses off and get these kids up to snuff, Anko said, determined. Wait, look. Kakashi put his hand up and gestured to the teens. Anko saw both Sakura and Sasuke feeding Naruto their bento. Anko shook her head. Can we pretend we didn't see them so we can get this over with so we can pass them? No, they pass. What do you mean? Just watch and you'll understand. Kakashi body flickered back into the clearing, shocking the genin. Anko watched the following display with great amusement. Kakashi had an almost manic tone and used Genjutsu to create an ominous storm over the area. Do you have anything to say for yourselves? Sensei, Naruto said, struggling while tied to the post. We're a three-man squad, right? Sasuke said, standing defiantly. Sakura, finding her confidence, spoke up as well. That's right. The three of us are one. That's right, yelled Naruto. All three genin stood their ground, awaiting their punishment. The three of you are one, huh? Kakashi slowly approached the genin and bent down. You pass. He said in a soft, almost proud tone. What? All three genin said they were surprised by the outcome. Kakashi then straightened his posture and began his explanation. The first part of the test is meant to be failed. The academy teaches you to follow authority figures, no question asked. So anything I told you would have been taken to heart. A shinobi must be able to see through deception and look underneath to see the true goal of any situation. You guys didn't blindly follow my orders to not feed Naruto, which showed you can think for yourselves. When you rallied by each other and stood up to me, it demonstrated loyalty to one another. Kakashi paused to let his words sink in. In our world, shinobi who break the rules are treated as garbage, but those who don't show loyalty to their friends are worse than that. A shinobi without loyalty to those close to them is just a mindless weapon waiting to be used. All three genin smiled in relief and began celebrating their just becoming a ninja. Yes, I'm a ninja, I'm actually a ninja. Naruto began to shed light tears as the realization that he had just achieved a lifelong goal hit him. Sakura hopped up and down internally, screaming with joy. Sasuke let the smile fall from his lips and got a determined look on his face. He would need to head straight home to begin his nightly routine. This was only the first step to his true goal. Well, I'll meet you guys here tomorrow, Kakashi said as he began to walk away. Both Sakura and Sasuke began to follow him out of the training ground. Naruto didn't notice, still on his high from becoming a ninja. But he did notice the movement of air behind and the sound of a familiar voice. Hey, where are you all going? Anko yelled after them as she cut Naruto's ropes. They all turned around, and surprisingly, Sasuke was the first to answer. Home. Anko looked at Kakashi. You know, for being all about teamwork, I thought you would know the most important rule in developing teamwork. What's that? Kakashi responded. Food, come on. I know this nice place in the village. Let's all head there and get dinner. Anko knew little about team bonding, but she made all her closest friends when she ate or drank. So, it couldn't be much different when it came to this team. No, I want ramen, we can go to Ichiraku. It's not far from here, Naruto said, stretching his limbs. What makes you think that you will be the one to decide, brat? Well, I'm the one who almost didn't eat because of your stupid test. Well, maybe if you didn't listen to Kakashi and ate before you got here, you wouldn't be hungry. Naruto stuck his tongue out at Anko, and she followed suit. The three others watched the childish display, baffled. Sakura spoke up. I actually can't go tonight. I promised my parents I would come home to tell them how my test went. Sasuke took advantage of the brief distraction to continue walking out of the training ground toward his home. Kakashi rubbed the back of his head. Maybe we can eat together another time, I must turn in my report to the Hokage. Anko and Naruto watched as the other three left the training ground. Anko looked over and saw the disappointment all over Naruto's face. Anko could leave and go to her favorite spot, but she couldn't just leave the kid alone. Anko stepped forward and put a hand on Naruto's shoulder. Come on, kid, let's get this ramen you mentioned. Naruto looked up with hopeful eyes. You mean it? Yeah, I got nothing better to do, but I can't hang out all night, I have to schedule your training tomorrow. Yes, come on, you are going to love Ichiraku, Naruto said, moving toward the place earnestly. They arrived at a small food stand in the middle of the village. Naruto barged into the empty stand and announced his arrival. Hey, guess who's back? The brown-haired woman behind the counter greeted him. Naruto, I thought we missed you today. AM then noticed the woman following in behind him. Oh, hello there. Are you a friend of Naruto? Anko smiled and said. Yeah, I'm one of his new teachers. Oh well, anyone from Naruto's team is welcome here. Anko took a seat next to Naruto. Where is the old man? Asked Naruto. Dad's out right now, so I'm just managing the stand alone. Anko leaned over to Naruto and said. I can see you got this little place wrapped around your fingers as well, I can respect that. Naruto looked at her, confused. What do you mean? The place I was talking about earlier is called the Dango shop. I used to go there after finishing training when I didn't want to return to the orphanage. I didn't have any money to buy anything then, but after I started coming in after a while, the owners would give me free tea and dango. Since then, I've been going there almost every day in the village. Naruto nodded. Yeah, I get it. I like a lot of different types of food outside of ramen, but when I eat ramen, I get a little bit of the same warm feeling I get when I eat at Ichiraku, Naruto shared, his voice filled with a sense of nostalgia and comfort. Whoa, looks like there is a brain in that head of yours after all, Anko said playfully. AM put both of their bowls down in front of them. Naruto pouted her jab. He then remembered something he wanted to ask her. So Sensei, you're an orphan too, right? Yep, I grew up in the orphanage until I was 9. Thinking of it, why didn't I see you there? I've been going back there every so often for years, and I'm sure I would have remembered you since there are not a lot of blondes in Konoha. I haven't been to the orphanage probably since I was 5, Naruto said after slurping down his bowl. 5? Did you get adopted out or something? No, that's just when the old man got me my apartment. Wait, apartment? Do you live by yourself? Yeah, sometimes Gramps sends people by to check up on me. He tries to come by every few months to hang out. Anko nodded. It looked like she would have to talk with the Hokage about why he had taken a 5-year-old out of the orphanage to live by himself. Anko continued her discussion with Naruto, telling some stories about some of her first missions. When Anko finished her bowl and Naruto finished his third, they both said their goodbyes to AM and exited onto the street. That was fun, I haven't eaten with anyone before outside of Iruka-sensei, said Naruto, happy and full. Well, don't worry, that is going to change. I'll make sure the rest of our team will join us the next time we go out like this. Naruto smiled brightly, then jogged back to his apartment and waved at Anko. See you later, sis. Anko was surprised at the sudden nickname he gave her. She felt like she should be annoyed about it, but didn't have a problem with it. Anko looked down at her pocket watch. Damn, she said under her breath. The Dango shop was already closed. It looked like she would have to stop by a convenience store on her way home for snacks, Anko thought as she went down the street. Sieben flew into the alarm seal on Anko's wall the following day. She added it to her wall after breaking her 10th alarm clock. It turns out that when people condition themselves from childhood to be hyper-aware and cautious of danger, they suddenly don't like being woken. She left her bedroom, navigating through loose clothes piles and empty boxes of junk food. She sighed when she saw the stack of notes and books left on her sofa. Kakashi had left all of the training plans to her, and in the past 2 nights, she had skimmed through just about every popular teaching guide. She meandered through her morning routine. After she got out of the shower and had a light breakfast with some tea, she grabbed some loose notes and a journal and began to make her way to the training ground. When Anko arrived at training ground 3, Sasuke was already doing basic stretches. He acknowledged her presence with a nod. Anko also began her stretches while waiting for the other two to arrive. Sakura was the next to arrive and instantly went towards Sasuke after a light wave to Anko. "Hey, Sasuke, how's your morning going?" Sasuke ignored her question and continued to go through his stretches. A brief look of disappointment flashed onto Sakura's face, but it quickly went back to a kind smile. "Well, I was wondering if you would like to go out and do something after training." Sasuke then glared at her, making her flinch, and he began to walk away to the other side of the clearing. Sakura sighed and sat down. Naruto arrived just a few minutes later. As usual, he was overloaded with energy and began to hop up and down next to Sakura. "Isn't this awesome, Sakura? We are real ninjas, we will be recusing princesses and taking down bad guys daily in a few weeks." Sakura looked up at Naruto and glared. "Leave me alone, Naruto, you're being annoying." Naruto flinched at the harshness in her tone. "Sheesh, Sakura, sorry, I was just trying to have a conversation." Guilt flashed across Sakura's face, and she looked down at the ground and looked down and mumbled. "Sorry. It's okay, it's my fault, I saw you looked in a bad mood, so I just wanted to cheer you up. I guess you are not a morning person." Before Sakura could respond to her shock at Naruto being thoughtful, Anko yelled at the genin from the middle of the clearing. "Okay, let's get started." All three traveled to their teacher. "Shouldn't we wait for Kakashi Sensei to show up?" Sakura voiced. "Oh, he'll show up in his own time to help you guys," Anko said as she waved off the lateness of her partner. While it annoyed her slightly, she knew he was probably back at the memorial stone, and Anko knew that as a ninja, everyone had their way of coping with their trauma, and she didn't want to disrespect Kakashi's. Anko reached into her trench coat pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper that had the training schedule that she made last night. "Okay, so here's the schedule." She cleared her throat before reading what she had written down. "Training will start at 7 o'clock every morning. Every day, we will begin training as a team. Mondays, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays will be individual training days for each of you. After the first hour on those days, I will take one of you aside and help you develop skills for your strengths, while the other two continued with whatever we were practicing. When you guys aren't training in your individual or core skills, we will be doing spars, teamwork drills, and conditioning. Thursday and Friday will start the same, but at 10 o'clock, we will do tier ranks for the rest of the day. Saturday will be a free day where we can work on whatever area you think you're lacking under our guidance, and you have Sunday entirely off. The next time you do individual training, I will review your progress since our last session. You'll also be expected to progress each week and train your skills in your own time." Anko's voice was a little dry from talking for so long. She was quite proud of her explanation, she only wrote about half of it on paper and made up the rest on the fly. All three genin seemed quite pleased with the training schedule. Naruto and Sasuke were pleased with the amount of training they were doing, and Sakura was happy with the detailed instructions about what was expected of her. "That's so awesome. We will be the greatest ninjas ever with all that training." Despite his statement's immaturity, it got a small smile from both his teammates. Anko grinned. "Don't think it's going to be easy, brats, you'll all be going to get run into the ground. Okay, let's get started." 30 minutes later, Anko laughed at Sasuke and Naruto's continued failure to walk up the tree. Every time one of them fell, she gave a sharp laugh loud enough for them to hear, to both of their annoyance. Naruto got around 7 steps up the tree this last time before falling and landing in a painful split. The laugh from Anko was the final straw, and Naruto started yelling. "If you are just going to stand there laughing, you can help me figure out how to do this." Anko shook her head. "I can only give you tips. You have to be able to do this by yourself. There is more to this exercise than just being able to walk up a tree with chakra." "Yeah, and what's that?" asked Naruto, still annoyed. "Another point of this exercise is to increase your control and to become more acquainted with channeling chakra to specific points in your body. If you master that skill, your potential as a ninja can increase tenfold. Do you know why?" She looked at each genin. They all thought about the question for a few seconds before Sakura answered. "No, why, sensei?" Anko decided to answer her with another question. "What's the difference between ninjas and civilians?" Naruto put his hand to his chin in a thinking gesture and said. "Is it how badass we are? Am and Tucci are pretty cool with how well they make ramen, but they can't shoot fire out of their mouths." Naruto then began pondering which was better, being able to spit fire or make the most delicious meal to grace the planet. Both Sakura and Sasuke rolled their eyes before Sauce clarified. "No idiot, it's chakra." "Exactly," Anko said as she pointed at Sasuke. "When you unlocked your chakra when you first entered the academy, you became faster and stronger than the average civilian. Chakra reinforces your muscles and increases your speed and strength. When you channel it to specific spots in your body, you are learning to adjust your chakra throughout it, and you can further increase your physical attributes." Naruto rubbed his head, still slightly confused. So what does that have to do with us being ninjas? Anko gave a smile. Allow me to demonstrate. Anko walked several feet away and started to stretch. All three genin waited in anticipation. With a running start, Anko jumped 15 feet into the air at a tree nearby. She then turned parallel to the tree in midair. When she landed, she jumped off the tree and launched further into the air. She performed backflips as she hit the peak of her jump until she landed perfectly in a squat in the middle of the clearing. When she got up from the crouch, she put both hands on her hips and held her head back, a cocky smile gracing her lips. Yeah, I know I'm awesome. No need for further applause. Anko boasted, excited she was able to impress the kids. That's so awesome, you have to teach us how to do that, shouted Naruto. She looked down at the kids still in her boastful pose. The first step to doing what I just did is tree walking. Since chakra gathers poorly at the feet, it's an excellent way to build up and expel chakra from your body. Each time I jumped, I expelled the chakra at my feet to increase the power of my jumps. I then strengthened the muscles in my legs to take the fall. Wow, Sakura said, impressed. After Anko's explanation, Sasuke and Naruto looked at each other with determination. I'll bet I can do this before you bastard, Naruto yelled as he pointed at Sasuke. Sasuke scoffed. As if you'll ever be able to beat me, idiot. Both began to run toward their trees to master this exercise. Anko then looked toward Sakura and said. Come on, girlie. You'll be first up for individual training since you've already basically mastered this part. She said the last part extra loud because she knew Sasuke was slightly annoyed when she got the exercise down so quickly. It wouldn't hurt if he began to regard her as a rival like Naruto. Sasuke gave Sakura a quick glare mixed with jealousy and disbelief. Upon seeing it, Sakura's face fell, and she gave a pointed look at her teacher. Anko shrugged and began to walk away from the clearing, gesturing for Sakura to follow her. Sakura sighed and started after her teacher. Anko led Sakura to their training spot, thinking deeply about Sakura's relationship with her teammates. The girl was hurt every time Sasuke ignored or glared at her, and she often took that misplaced anger out on Naruto. Anko couldn't help but notice that it was also distracting Sakura. The girl's infatuation with Sasuke was becoming a hindrance to her training. She would often lose focus, her gaze drifting toward Sasuke instead of the task at hand. This preoccupation almost led to a few accidents, like the time she nearly slipped off the tree branch. As Anko watched Sakura, she couldn't help but feel a pang of concern. The girl was at a crossroads, torn between her blossoming emotions and the harsh reality of her shinobi career. Anko knew that if Sakura didn't find a way to balance these conflicting aspects of her life, it could potentially drive a wedge between her and her teammates. The only question was how to change her behavior. While Anko could be hard on the girl to make her grow up, that would require her to be cruel. Despite her reputation, Anko didn't want to be overly mean to people who didn't deserve it, especially children. The girl also clearly has some confidence issues, so berating her could drive her into a shell. So, Anko decided the best path forward was to ask the girl why she was so obsessed with the boy. Sakura? Anko said, looking over her shoulder. Yes, sensei. Why do you like Sasuke? Sakura perked up at the line of questioning and began to talk about her crush. Well, he's cool, has beautiful hair and alluring eyes, and his skills as a ninja are amazing, Sakura gushed. Yeah, but that's why you think he's hot or whatever. Let me rephrase, it's clear just being around you and him for a few days that your crush on him goes deeper than just his looks. Sakura stopped and looked at the ground. She hadn't needed to explain why she liked Sasuke outside of his attractive qualities, since it was understood by most in her class. They had already arrived in a small clearing a few minutes from where the boys were training. Anko turned around and looked at Sakura. I guess. Sakura started with hesitation in her voice. When I was younger, I got bullied a lot for my hair and forehead, and Ino Pig, helped me and suggested that I join the academy. When I first started, I was nervous and didn't know anyone outside of Ino. Sasuke was the first one to talk to me. He was quiet and still a loner, but he was nice the few times I spoke to him. Sakura smiled at the memory. When the thing happened, he changed. The somber expression came across Sakura's face. After it happened, at first, I just wanted to be his friend or find a way to help him, but then a lot of the girls in the class started to crush on him, too. Then I supported him by cheering him on during spars and asking him to go places with me on dates, since I knew he only went straight home every day with no one to talk to. And? Sakura stopped wondering why she was pouring her heart out to this woman she just met. Anko smiled at her. Don't worry, Sakura, anything you say will stay between us. And I guess I like the attention I got from liking Sasuke, Sakura said, surprised she could admit it out loud. The louder I was about my crush, the more popular I became. I even became the leader of the Sasuke fan club 2.0. Anko's eyebrows rose at the implied predecessor of the fan club. Sakura rolled her eyes. That Ino pig ran the first one into the ground, so I started my much better fan club. Sakura put her thumb into her chest, clearly proud of her achievements. So what did your fan club do? Stalk him around town? No. Sakura yelled, clearly not meaning to be that loud, as she lowered her volume. That was my main disagreement with the previous fan club. They started to follow Sasuke around, and one time, they had to be escorted away so Sasuke could get into his house. Anko shook her head, only imagining the boy's annoyance with this obsessive behavior. So, what did your fan club do? Anko couldn't believe she was talking about this, but it was worth it if it helped her figure out what motivated the girl. Well, you know, normal things. Like sitting around and talking about Sasuke, planning our looks and outfits around what he liked, and creating plans to capture his affections. Sakura shook her head. The last one was a stressful job. She ran her hand through her hair as she remembered her previous frustrations. I had to replace the executive planner position 5 times during the academy, and the stress of the position got to some girls. Near the end, it got to the point where we just left it vacant. Anko sighed in exasperation at the absurdity of multiple political groups of fangirls vying for one boy's attention. I understand you want to help him, Sakura, but I think you have been going about this wrong. Sakura looked up, surprised. What do you mean? Well, do you like it when Naruto asks you out? Sakura's face morphed into a light scowl. Of course not. God, he's so annoying. Doesn't he realize I am just not interested in dating him? Sakura said. Yeah, I'm sure it is annoying when someone constantly looks at you and continues to ask you out on dates, despite making it perfectly clear that you in no way have any interest in dating them, Anko said, mustering up as much sarcasm as she could manage. Exactly. Why can't he get that through that thick skull of his? I mean, come on, how dense can you be? Anko tapped her foot and waited. Sakura's face changed into multiple phases. Shock, confusion, and pure horror. She put both hands on her head. You don't mean Sasuke thinks the same about me asking him out like I do, Naruto? Anko nodded. Sakura fell to the ground, defeated. But that can't be true, Sakura mumbled, denying the similarity in her and Naruto's behavior. Anko then crouched down to Sakura's level. Listen, if you put Sasuke on such a pedestal that you believe he can't do no wrong, that's not you liking someone, you idolize him. Sakura looked down, ashamed. Sasuke needs friends more than anything right now, and the first step is to be nicer to Naruto and more honest with Sasuke. How does being nicer to Naruto help Sasuke? Sakura asked, her brow furrowed in confusion. I skimmed through most of Sasuke's academy reports. Do you know who the only person he talks to is? Naruto, Sakura, her voice giving away recognition. I think Sasuke considers Naruto a friend even if he doesn't know it, and I don't think he appreciates you being mean to him. Besides, the kid isn't that bad, a little annoying, but if you give him a chance, I'm sure you like him. Sakura nodded. I get it, Sensei, I'll try to do better. Anko gave a light chuckle and stood and gave a loud clap. Instantly, her demeanor changed and she became more carefree. Okay, enough sentimental stuff. It's time for your first lesson. Sakura stood at attention. Now, with your success at tree walking, it's clear your chakra control is excellent. I think I have yet to hear of anyone succeeding on their first try. Sakura beamed under the praise. So, I will give you lessons and test your aptitude in Genjutsu. That's what Kakashi Sensei used on me during the bell test, right? Anko nodded. Are you good at it, Sensei? Anko raised her hand in a so-so motion. Not my specialty, but I'm decent at it. Anyways, here catch. Anko reached inside her coat, pulled out a small scroll, and tossed it toward Sakura. Sakura caught it and began to unroll it. Some basic techniques you probably could have learned in the academy. Sakura opened the scroll and found instructions for 3 Genjutsu, 2D and 1 C rank. Sakura looked over each jutsu in the scroll. The double vision technique AD rank causes the opponent to see 2 of everything when cast. The drunken sight technique. This causes someone to see the world as if drunk. The C-rank technique in the scroll was the false surroundings technique, which places an illusion in the surrounding area where it is cast. I didn't want to overwhelm you with too many techniques, but most of these are easy to master. Speaking of, why are the first 2 considered D-rank techniques? Sakura held her face in a tight expression. Is it because they are really obvious? I mean, if in combat you start seeing double or start getting drunk, you'll know immediately and can just shake off the Genjutsu. You got it half right, most ninjas would not even be affected by these techniques, even the most experienced genin would probably shrug it off. But it's not really about the techniques. It's how most people use them that makes them D-rank. Sakura gave an interested look. You see, if you manage to reach my friend's mastery with these techniques, you could cast these with no hand signs in the middle of combat. Whenever I spar with her, she uses the double vision and drunken sight techniques to set me off balance. Only masters a chakra disruption can disrupt Genjutsu without losing focus, especially if you have an enemy engaged in close quarters simultaneously. Sakura looked pensive and asked. Do you have a notebook or something to take notes on? This is a lot to remember. Sure. Anko said as she reached into her trench coat and produced a notebook and pencil. Sakura decided she did not want to know where her sensei stored all of these things and gladly took the items. Anko looked off into the forest and began talking. Sakura, I want you to think about things like this because I don't want you to get into the mindset of just being in a support role. Despite the perceived equality of the ninja profession, biases are still placed on kunoichi. Only about a third of the shinobi force comprises women, even fewer are jonin level or above, and are almost always pushed into backline support roles. Sakura thought to herself, realizing that outside of Anko and the sensei of Team 8, she had never seen elite female shinobi in Konoha. Sakura ran it over in her mind. Her mother warned her she might face bias in her chosen career path since she was a girl. She didn't think much of it at the time. Still, thinking back to the academy, the girls had to take flower arrangement classes. At the same time, the boys continued to take extra taijutsu lessons. Listen, you'll always be underestimated because you're a woman, but don't let yourself get boxed into the support role mentally, or you will find yourself a bystander next to your teammates. A smile came over Sakura's lips. So you mean that instead of focusing on being just and in a support role, I should focus on being a badass kunoichi like you, sensei? Anko gave a toothy grin. If you keep talking like that, you are going to end up as my favorite student. Anyway, let's get started. Try out some of these techniques on me. I'm not the best sensor, but I should be able to tell you if you're molding your chakra wrong. Over the next 2 hours, Anko taught Sakura to visualize her techniques and cast them onto another person's senses. It was relatively easy since Anko allowed her to do it. Still, by the end of the session, Sakura could cast both of the D ranks and had made decent progress into the C rank technique. As she made her way back to the boys with Sakura, she noticed Kakashi had arrived and that the boys had both made considerable progress in tree walking. Yo. Kakashi, as nonchalant as ever, greeted Anko and Sakura with a simple yo, leaning against a tree with a book in hand. You're late. Sakura yelled and pointed a finger at him. Well, you see, I had to help my neighbor move some furniture across town. Naruto glared from the ground he had recently fallen on. Hey, that's not what you said earlier. I thought you helped your neighbor paint his living room. Naruto, I am sure you know that people can do more than one thing at a time. Naruto scowled and Anko had to hold back a laugh. Kakashi certainly knew how to press people's buttons. The rest of the day went as planned, with them doing conditioning and teamwork drills for the rest of the afternoon. The next day, Naruto stared angrily at the books before him. This is so dumb. I thought you were going to teach me ninja skills, not bore me to death. Listen, with your clones, you can have a constant squad of people who know exactly how you think on call. During the test, you swarmed Kashi, but if you had used your clones more effectively, you could have grabbed a bell. So what does that have to do with me reading? If you learn some battle tactics and troop organization, you have the potential to be a one-person army. Well, that sounded cool, he still had to read, but I can be a one-man army if you just teach me some ninjutsu. Anko held her annoyance at the boy's audacity. Listen, kid, I can't teach you any ninjutsu techniques, and you definitely can't know anything close to elemental manipulation. Your control is so bad that you'll hurt yourself trying to do any ninjutsu. What does my control being bad have to do with me not being able to learn any awesome ninjutsu? Naruto said. Anko rubbed her hand across her face and sighed. Look, your chakra reserves are large, which is good, but your control is so bad that you waste most of your chakra. It's like forcing a tidal wave through a water hose. When you put chakra into your techniques, some water might get through to the end, but not enough to fully complete the technique. Naruto looked down, remembering his inability to do the regular clone technique. In cases like the Shuriken Shadow Clone Jutsu, the amount produced is based on the chakra you put in. There is no limit, making it very dangerous for you to use. That's why the Shadow Clone works so well for you. It doesn't require control, it splits your chakra evenly between your clones, and there is no dangerous drawback with you putting too much chakra in. Naruto nodded, though he still did not exactly follow what this lady was getting at. How much did you read when you learned the technique from the Forbidden Scroll? Naruto gave a surprised squawk in response to her question. Don't worry, brat, you're not in trouble with me. The Hokage told me what you managed to do with that technique. Good job, by the way, but if Mizuki wasn't such a sorry ass, he probably could have countered your technique with your skills the way they are now. Naruto glared at her for insulting one of his most significant accomplishments. I'm assuming you just read the technique's name and saw the low numbers of hand seals, but you didn't bother to read the actual description of the jutsu. Naruto gave an awkward laugh and rubbed the back of his head. Maybe. Anko sighed and began to explain the jutsu. To keep it short, the technique you found was the more advanced version of the shadow clone technique. It uses more chakra but allows you to create a lot more clones. You also gain the memories of your clones when they are destroyed. Naruto looked shocked. Why haven't I noticed it yet? Probably because you haven't used them for anything outside combat, or the version you use can't transfer memories. Let's test it out. I wanted to see if a theory I had about your training could work. Make 5 clones now. Naruto put his hands in the ram seal and made 6 clones. Close enough. Okay, I want 3 of you to work on the leaf control exercise. You 2, start reading. And you, the final clone looked up, waiting for instructions, and had a brief look of betrayal before a senbon pierced the front of its neck. Hey, what's the big idea? All of the other Naruto shouted in unison. Anko shrugged. I had no idea what to do with that one, and I don't know what effect it may have on you if we overload you with memories. So we are going to keep the maximum number to 5. But before you begin, I feel like you don't see the value in something unless they know what you could get in the end, so I'll show you the jutsu. I'll teach you when I feel you have made enough progress on your control. The Narutos turned to Anko and watched her intently, excited to see a new jutsu. Anko then turned toward 5 target posts. Anko pulled out one shuriken and threw it at one post. She then began to weave through hand signs and perform the shuriken shadow clone jutsu. As one shuriken turned into 5, all raced forward and hit the bullseye of each target. Wow, can I learn that now? The Narutos asked. No. Why not? Because if I taught that to you now, you'll create thousands and probably throw a couple hundred at the village. The Narutos all had a brief look of sadness before steeling themselves. Just wait, sis. I will get you to teach me that jutsu in no time. The Narutos then began to go to their assigned roles. So what do I do? Asked the original Naruto. We are going to work on your taijutsu. I won't teach you a specific style, but we need to work on your form. Naruto smiled, alright, bring it on. Then began to charge at Anko before ending up flat on his back, groaning. Anko sighed. This was going to be a long training session. The following day, Anko took Sasuke to a rocky clearing on the other side of the training ground, with several training posts lined up in front of a large boulder. Okay, listen here, kid, you're good. Any genin who can use elemental techniques at your age is impressive. Sasuke gave a self-satisfied smirk. Do you know any other fire techniques? I know the Phoenix Fireball, Jutsu, but I haven't mastered it yet. But, you will probably find that much more useful than the Great Fireball Jutsu. Sasuke raised an eyebrow. Anko explained. While the fireball is a powerful technique, it is also impractical when fighting a skilled enough enemy. It blocks your view of the enemy and can be countered with low-rank earth and water jutsu by a skilled enough user. You saw how that ended when you fought Kakashi. Sasuke grimaced at the memory of him being humiliated by Kakashi. The Phoenix Flower Jutsu is a great one for control, although it is not as powerful. You can hide weapons in the fire and control each individual blast. Sasuke looked at her, annoyed as if he didn't know this. Anko rolled her eyes. The reason I'm talking about this is because I want to teach you a jutsu that has the control of the Phoenix Flower Jutsu and the power of the Fireball Jutsu. Sasuke perked up at her words. It's called the Great Dragon Fire Technique and is technically a B rank, but you can handle it. It requires a lot of advanced shape manipulation. It uses more chakra than the previous techniques, but its power and versatility make it very useful. Anko then motioned Sasuke to move away. Sasuke backed toward the tree line as he watched Anko turn away from the targets and perform many hand signs to perform the fire style. Great Dragon Fireball Jutsu. Anko spat out a fire in the shape of a dragon's head. The dragon went straight forward and then curved upwards and went towards the posts. On impact, there was a massive explosion of fire. When the technique dispersed, all that was left was scarred earth and a partially charred boulder. Sasuke gave an impressed nod. I want to teach you this jutsu because it requires all of the aspects of chakra manipulation. Power, shape, and control. If you manage to master this jutsu, you will be able to create new fire jutsu or alter the ones you already know. Create new jutsu. Do you want me to do that? Anko looked at Sasuke. Listen, kid, you're talented. I don't want to limit you to learning techniques from scrolls. Most fire jutsu from Konoha were created by your clan and have been used for generations. Enemy ninjas expect fire jutsu from Leaf Shinobi and usually counter them. Still, if you use new techniques or alter existing ones, you can turn their knowledge against them. For example, watch this. Anko then went through a similar amount of hand signs and performed fire style. Flaming Snake Jutsu. She then spat out a fast-moving flame that transformed into a snake. The snake began to wrap around the boulder and melt into it before exploding, taking most of the boulder with it. Anko smiled at the shocked look Sasuke gave the aftermath of her technique. I made that one, especially for defensive earth techniques. Despite being smaller than the Great Dragon Fire Jutsu, I used a lot more chakra. I concentrated my chakra into the shape of the snake to increase the heat of the flames, and once it had dug deep enough, I released the technique, which caused it to explode and shatter the boulder. Anko's face took a more serious look. Another reason I'm showing you how to do this is because I believe shinobi are too rigid. In the past days, new jutsu were being developed daily. Today, most ninjas learn whatever their clan or village tells them to learn. You have a lot of potential, and I don't want you to learn just all of your clan's century-old techniques. Sasuke nodded, a small smile gracing his lip. He wanted this type of training to get the tools necessary to create techniques that his brother would not be able to counter. Okay, watch my hands carefully and go through the hand signs without molding the chakra to get used to it. For the rest of Sasuke's training session, he managed to cast the jutsu once, but he didn't have much control of it outside of a couple feet. Anko decided it was significant progress and told him to work on it more until the next week. A few hours later, Kakashi and Anko oversaw Naruto's and Sasuke's water walking. Sakura was on the water doing some basic jutsu drills to get used to fighting on the water. While on land, Anko began to talk to Kakashi about a pressing issue. You have to tell Sasuke about your Sharingan. The kid already has trust issues, so if he learns about your eye from somewhere else, he'll come to his own conclusions. Yeah, I don't think now is the right time. When would it be? You can't put it off forever. I know I'll get around to it. There was a brief silence before Anko spoke. You read his psych reports, right? Anko asked. Of course, I looked over everyone over the past few years. Then you know that he needs someone badly, and I'm not saying it has to be you, but I don't think I could do it. Why's that? Asked Kakashi. Because I haven't really lost anything before. Sure, I lost my memories, and that sucked. However, all the people I care about are still alive and well. Because I haven't experienced even a little of what he is feeling, I doubt I'll be able to truly understand him. So, you're saying I could, Kakashi said, his voice getting a little tense. Don't worry, I didn't go through your file or anything. I'm not that nosy, but because you spend a quarter of your day staring at dead people's names, I assume you have probably lost a lot. Kakashi didn't respond. Look, I'm not saying you have to be the kid's therapist or anything, just talk to him. Every time he starts to enjoy any part of life, he closes himself off from it. If that keeps up, he'll never even bond with his teammates, much less gain loyalty to the village. Kakashi sighed. I understand. I'll talk with him today after training is over. I don't know what to say, but you're right. It might be too late to make a difference if I put it off for long enough. Their conversation ended there, and they continued to supervise the genin. Once training wrapped up, Anko went over to Naruto and Sakura and said, "Hey, you two, come with me, and let's grab a bite." "Hell yes, Raymond," Naruto yelled excitedly. "Hell no, Raymond, we had it the last time we went out. We are heading to the dango shop." Naruto pouted. She did have a point, and he wasn't going to say no to a free meal. "Are Kakashi-sensei and Sasuke going to join us?" Sakura asked. Maybe later, but they have to talk alone." Sakura immediately got what her teacher was trying to say and resigned herself to going. Her implication, however, went over Naruto's head, and he said, "Ah, the bastard is in trouble, serves him right." "No, he's not, you idiot," Sakura said. "What do you mean he's not? What else is Kakashi-sensei going to talk with him about?" "I don't know, and it's none of our business." The light banter continued as they headed to the dango shop with Anko, leaving Kakashi and Sasuke at the training grounds. Sasuke sat, waiting for Kakashi to say something. He had been silent for 10 minutes and showed no signs of doing anything but wasting his time. Fed up, Sasuke began to walk away. Just then, he heard Kakashi speak. "Sasuke." When he heard his name, Sok turned around only to see a Sharingan in Kakashi's left eye. Sasuke's heart dropped in his chest. A myriad of emotions went through him, but ultimately, he settled on anger. "So, you're a thief then?" "No, I'm not, this was a gift from a friend. I brought you here to tell you how I got this eye, but I couldn't find a good place to start." Sasuke didn't respond, but Kakashi seemed to appease him, and he continued to stand, waiting for Kakashi to speak. Kakashi had no idea where to start. He had never talked about his past with anyone, not even with a yearly therapist he was required to go to. It was another few minutes before he would speak, and he decided to start at the only place that made sense at the beginning. "My father killed himself when I was 4. Sasuke's eyes widened, gaining emotional whiplash at the statement. I only remember seeing him a few times. When you're that young, you only get flashes of moments. He was always busy, and one of the few times I remember him is coming home to find him dead in the middle of the floor. Kakashi took a deep breath. While the pain of his father's death had long since dulled, it was still difficult to talk about. The village shunned him, a mission gone wrong. I don't know much about the details. Most of its records were destroyed when I had enough clearance to access mission records. All I know is that he ran a diplomatic mission that went wrong. 2 of his teammates ended up getting captured, and his decision to recuse them resulted in some essential people dying. It ended up getting us involved in the Third War. Kakashi paused. After that, I felt that my father died because he broke the rules and betrayed his duties as a ninja of Konoha for his friends. I was obsessed with becoming elite. I trained every day for hours and only ate and slept when my body was on the brink of exhaustion. I graduated from the academy in a year and became a chunin. At this point, Kakashi forgot that Sasuke was there and was just telling his truth, saying things he had never considered before. I hated being a chunin. Both my teammates were over twice my age and treated me like trash. It was like that for 3 years until I was transferred to a freshly graduated genin team, my Team 7. Sasuke had a slight look of shock on his face, but other than that, he showed no other reaction and kept listening. One of my teammates was your cousin, Obito Uchiha. You probably wouldn't know him. I wonder if your clan talked about him. Uchiha with lousy eyesight. Kakashi gave a humorless chuckle. Despite my reluctance, I grew to like my teammates. Rin was kind and intelligent, and Obito was actually a lot like Naruto. Desperate to prove themselves to the world, loud and untalented, but they had enough confidence and charisma that you couldn't just help but believe in them. During a mission during the war, we were tasked to blow up the Kanabi Bridge. Rin ended up being captured. I wanted to leave her behind. Every fiber of my being wanted to abandon the mission and save her, but I was scared. I didn't want to be seen as a failure in the village. I didn't want to be my father. But Obito, despite me refusing to go, went to rescue Rin. Eventually, I ended up getting my head out of my ass and followed suit, but maybe if I just went right away, things would have gone differently. I lost my left eye during the fight, and the cave Rin was held in was collapsed by an Iwa shinobi, and Obito's body ended up being crushed under the rubble. He asked me to take his eye, to remember him. He was a true shinobi. After the mission, I returned to the village and cried for the first time in years. Not just because of Obito's death, but because I realized that my father was right. He ended up losing hope, but his actions to save his teammates were those of a true shinobi. Sasuke didn't want to speak further, but he did notice the absence of this Rin person, and with the story, he was just told that he had a feeling of what already happened, but he had to know for sure. He asked. What happened to Rin? I killed her. Sasuke's eyes grew wide. She was captured by Miss Ninja a few months later. After I rescued her, she jumped in front of my technique. I don't know why or what happened that made her want to die, but she wanted it to be by my hand. Sasuke's expression was blank as he was deep in thought. Look, Sasuke, initially, I didn't mean for this talk to turn into a saga about my life story, but I felt I could tell you this because you remind me of myself back then. Lost and confused and launching yourself relentlessly toward your goal, with anything else in life being useless. Sasuke looked up at Kakashi, but he didn't see the typical indifference in them or the determined eyes of an avenger. His eyes looked tired, as if he hadn't slept since the night of the massacre. It was the most vulnerable he had ever seen Sasuke. I'm not asking you to tell me anything on your mind, Sasuke. I'm probably the worst person you could go to for emotional support, but all I'm saying is that you need to enjoy life and the people around you. Your goal isn't going anywhere. Regret is the only thing worse than a grudge. Sasuke didn't respond, looking at the ground and mulling over Kakashi's words. After a few moments, Kakashi began to walk away, but he spoke as he went a few feet past Sasuke. I'm going to go to the dango shop now to meet the others. But whether you want to go is up to you, Sasuke. You can head back home and continue to fight with ghosts, or you can finally take a step and move forward with your life. Trust me, the ghosts don't go away, but they won't be upset if you forget about them, at least for a while. Kakashi continued out of the training ground, leaving Sasuke behind. Minutes later, Sasuke continued to stand there, his mind a whirlwind. And he then remembered the 2 versions of his brother. The brother who used to take him on piggyback rides throughout Konoha was the one he looked up to. And the brother who killed their family in cold blood to prove himself. The one who made him watch over and over again as he slaughtered their clan. Sasuke fell to his knees and began to cry. He had mourned everyone who died that night, but he never mourned his brother. He couldn't mourn that monster. But after Kakashi's story, he couldn't get the memories of his brother out of his head. After a while, Sasuke stopped crying and got up, his head feeling the clearest it had been in years. He was no longer on a mission to kill his brother was dead, and he probably died long before that night. No, he was hunting down the man who slaughtered his clan and nothing else. Sasuke made his decision as he left the training ground and made his way to the dango shop. Chapter 3. Natural talent. It was official, D ranks were the worst thing to be invented. While Sakura didn't mind lighter work, especially since she knew she was nowhere near ready to go out into the field, the mindless drone work of D ranks was getting to her and her teammates. She looked over at Naruto, who was picking weeds with a scowl. She giggled. Since her talk with Anko, she has been attempting to be nicer to Naruto. To her surprise, she found Naruto very funny, whether it was his immature reactions that matched her inner thoughts or his boisterous personality that exuded happiness. Sure, he was still annoying most of the time, but he wasn't as bad as she thought he was in the academy. However, her new attempt at friendship with Sasuke was advancing slower than she hoped. She looked over at him on the other side of the field with a stern expression on his face. She stared for a few moments before catching herself and quickly looking away. Since she realized that what she was doing to Sasuke was not only rude but quite creepy, Sakura didn't know how to feel. She still liked him, but it was clear that her attempts at affection only seemed to make Sasuke annoyed or angry. Most girls in the academy shrugged it off as him being shy, but now that she thought about it, it was clear that Sasuke never showed affection to anyone. The closest was Naruto, but he insulted him almost every time they spoke. Sure, it had only been a few days cold turkey or not constantly ogling over him, but she hoped she could get closer to him and help him out of his darkness. Sakura continued ruminating on her dilemma as they finished their second D rank of the day. On their way back to the Hokage tower to report on their success, Naruto started to complain. This is so stupid, we are supposed to be ninjas, not gardeners or janitors. Sasuke nodded in agreement, frustrated with the less than engaging task they were doing. Well, you guys have to do them. D ranks are a good way to get you guys used to working together as a team, and it is important because it teaches you skills that you need to know as a leaf shinobi. Kakashi chimed in briefly, looking over his book. Plus, you guys have been genin for only 2 weeks, anything C rank or above means you probably have to leave the village, meaning anything can happen. You have to be prepared, and this little grunt work is a good way for us to decide when you are while you make money and help out the village. Anko added. Yeah, whatever, Naruto said, still displeased with the current situation. As they made their way into the tower, the Chunin at the mission desk commented when they saw Team 7 walk in. You know, I've never seen a genin team taught by 2 high-ranking ninjas before. Yeah, the Hokage decided that this lazy ass needed some extra help teaching. She said, taking a jab at Kakashi. Well, if this little team works out, they might try pairing a special jonin and a jonin together more often. The Chunin said. Naruto perked up at the term he hadn't heard before. Special jonin, is that like a jonin but better? The Chunin laughed lightly. No, it is just a title for those between the ranks of Chunin and Jonin. Special Jonin has some Jonin level skills, but not enough to become full-fledged ones. Sakura, becoming curious about the current topic, asked. So, which one of you is a special Jonin? It's me, sadly, Anko said with a hint of melancholy in her voice. So that means that Kakashi is stronger than Anko, Sasuke said, more of a question than a statement. Anko flinched at the comment. I wouldn't be so confident about that kid. I have never fought him before, but with a bit of elbow grease, I'm sure I could give him a run for his money. Oh, are you sure about that? Kakashi said as he narrowed his eye at Anko. Yeah, I am. I know you have a cool nickname and all, but I won't say I can't beat you just because of your reputation. Anko said, making Kakashi wonder if Anko was more jealous of his nickname than his rank. Wait, why don't you two fight and we can see who's stronger, suggested Naruto. This statement interested both his teammates as all 3 genin looked at their senseis. I mean, there would be no reason, it's not like it would help in teaching you guys, said Anko, desperately trying to hide her excitement at the prospect. Come on, we can learn a lot from watching how ninjas fight, Naruto said, eager to see a fight. Kakashi looked at Anko. There's no way we are doing this right. I can't believe we are doing this, Kakashi mumbled under his breath. Anko and Kakashi stood across from each other 20 feet apart in the clearing, while the genin were a safe distance away. By the way, Haddock, you probably want to start with your Sharingan uncovered, don't want to send you to the hospital, Anko said, cocky as ever. Kakashi gave an eye smile. We'll see if you can back up those words. He then launched a kunai into the air, and its descent signaled the start of their fight. The genin watched in anticipation on a hill with a good view of the clearing. Who do you think is going to win? Asked Naruto. I don't know. We have never seen them fight before, but with Kakashi's strength during the bell test, it's hard to imagine him losing. What do you think, Sasuke? Sasuke was not paying any attention to his teammates. His focus was entirely on the duel between his teachers. He was anxious to see just how strong they were without holding back. When the kunai planted into the dirt, Anko pulled 3 senbon and fired them at Kakashi. Kakashi quickly pulled a kunai and deflected them. Anko started to advance while periodically throwing senbon, targeting different areas of his body to keep him off balance. As Anko got closer, Kakashi suddenly closed the distance, and Anko had to dodge back to avoid a blow to her head. She dashed a few feet backward and got into her Genjutsu stance. She then charged Kakashi with a hook aimed at his head. Kakashi was about to counter, but Anko suddenly stopped and spun on her heel. Kakashi only had a second to tilt his head back to avoid a sudden roundhouse kick. They then began an exchange of blows. After the first few seconds, it was clear to Anko that she was outmatched. Her Genjutsu style relied on unnatural dodges and counters to get into her opponent's guard. Still, it also required her to predict her opponent's movements. This turned out to be near impossible with Kakashi. He was slightly switching his style every other move, making him unpredictable and her unable to counter his attacks consistently. Anko dodged a kick to jump away and get distance. She was more than a little frustrated. He had outmatched her in Genjutsu without the use of his Sharingan. As she got more distant, she began to perform hand signs. Earth release. Earth flow spears. Anko put her hands on the ground in front of her. Earth spikes began to shoot through the ground between her and Kakashi. Kakashi didn't dodge and began to run through hands. Lightning release. Depth charge. Lighting enveloped Kakashi's body and they shot forward, crashing into the earth and disrupting it. Anko barely managed to dodge as she rolled out of the way of the bolt. Anko pulled down the sleeve of her trench coat to reveal a poison bomb launcher and began firing at Kakashi. The small bombs exploded on contact and released gas in a wide area. Kakashi dodged the gas, taking extra care not to get too close since he didn't know how seriously Anko was taking the spar. Once the barrage stopped, Kakashi noticed the gas dispersed around him in a circle, blocking his sight from Anko. "You'll probably want to pull out your Sharingan for this," yelled Anko. From beyond the wall of smoke, Anko quickly raced through hand signs. The gas around Kakashi dispersed just as Anko finished her technique. High release. Flame wisps technique. Anko spat out a large amount of fire that quickly formed into dozens of tiny wisps of flame that surrounded Kakashi. Before he could make a move, he saw Anko start to run around him and throw senbon. He prepared to counter with a kunai, and then his lone eye widened as one of the senbon made contact with the wisps and nearly tripled in speed. He barely dodged out of the way of 2 of them, but one scraped across his arm and was hot enough to already close the wound after it passed through. He instantly uncovered his eye, revealing his Sharingan. As he prepared to counter the rest of the technique, he tried to deflect one with a kunai, but it went straight through the kunai, leaving a small hole. This left him only with the option to dodge the incoming attacks. By the time it was over, he found that he had not suffered any severe damage, but he had a few more close cuts on his arms and legs. Kakashi quickly realized that if this wasn't a spar, Anko would have most likely pierced him with more than one of those flaming senbon. Anko was breathing heavily. She hadn't quite perfected the control needed for that technique, so she wasted a lot of chakra on it. Kakashi addressed Anko. "If this wasn't a spar, I would think you wanted to kill me." Anko smirked. "Well, I couldn't let you take it easy the whole time." Kakashi smirked under his mask and performed a jutsu. Water release. Water bullet technique. As he shot out a fast-moving torrent of water at Anko. With no time to dodge, Anko performed a small great fireball jutsu to counter the jutsu. She quickly realized her mistake as the steam produced made her lose sight of Kakashi. Cursing at herself, she quickly used earth release. Mud wall directly at her feet to raise the ground beneath her and out of the cloud of steam. As she looked around for Kakashi, waiting for him to attack, she noticed too late when she felt the wall beneath her rumble slightly. As the wall exploded to reveal Kakashi, he landed a punch on her chin and then a kick to her chest, sending her spiraling to the ground. Anko quickly recovered and launched senbon at a still mid-air Kakashi after her rough landing. She almost celebrated when they made contact, but she was surprised to see Kakashi disappear in a puff of smoke. Anko then felt cold metal on the side of her neck. "Looks like this round is mine." Anko could feel his smug expression despite not seeing it. Anko put her hands up, annoyed. "Fine, you win this time. You masked bastard." "Oh my god, that was amazing." Their eyes then turned over to see the astonished faces of their students and Naruto hopping up and down excitedly. All 3 of them were in awe of the speed and intensity of the fight. "You have to teach us how to fight like that," Naruto yelled, imagining himself using awesome techniques like his sensei's. "Calm down. It will take years for you guys to get to my level, but if you keep working as hard as you guys are, then you guys may have a chance," Anko said. Naruto stared at her blankly. "Didn't you just lose?" "Lose-win, it's just semantics," Anko said, slightly denying her loss. The 3 genin gave Anko a look of pity at her immense cope. Kakashi coughed. Well, I hope this little brawl inspires you to work harder. The genin nodded. Anko and Kakashi had just finished their monthly report to the Hokage. They were only 30 minutes late at that, although it took several colorful threats from Anko to get Kakashi to show up that early. Hiruzen nodded as he read the report. Naruto had improved his chakra control and jutsu. According to Anko, his knowledge of tactics and strategy with his clones showed great potential. And to his biggest shock, Anko taught him the Shuriken Shadow Clone Jutsu. A jutsu he taught Anko several years back. Due to the extra conditioning she received, Sakura improved significantly physically. While she still wasn't on the level of her teammates, her stamina was good enough that she could last several minutes into jutsu spars. She was also a prodigy in Genjutsu and had almost exhausted the number of C-rank techniques Anko and Kakashi could teach her. Sasuke had continued to improve in most areas, with his control and jutsu becoming more refined with the guidance of his teachers. Over the month, he also learned the Great Fire Dragon Fire technique and started the beginning stages of making a new fire technique. Hiruzen looked up, satisfied with the progress of Team 7. You both are doing excellent jobs. Thinking they can progress in only 1 month shows the early benefits of this dual assignment. Thank you, sir, Kakashi said while smiling. Thanks Gramps. Anko grinned at her grander father figure. Well, if that's all, you are both dismissed. Actually, there's something we want to ask you, said Anko. Hiruzen looked up and motioned for her to continue. Well, Kakashi and I have thought about nature transformation training for the 3 of them this month. Hiruzen's eyes widened. You realize they won't be expected to know nature's transformation until Chunin, right? Yeah, but that's usually due to the lack of control or levels in fresh genin Chakra. Sakura's control is prodigal, Naruto's has massive reserves, and Sasuke knows multiple fire transformation techniques, including the B rank I taught him last month. Well, I understand why you will want to tell me, but you know I fully support any decision you make in how you two teach your genin. There must be something else you wish to ask for, Hiruzen asked. Kakashi chimed in. Well, we propose that if we can teach the kids nature transformation and 1 new C rank each, you will start assigning our team C rank missions. Hiruzen's eyes narrowed. While both of you are favored by me, I can't bend the rules I set in place. Genin must have 4 months minimum training in the village before any C ranks are assigned. Hiruzen sighed. Also, my advisors think I'm already giving your team too much preferential treatment. If I allowed you guys to break the rules I put in place, that wouldn't let me hear the end of it. Come on, Gramps, the sooner we get the kids into the field, the better we can prepare them for the future. Besides, Kakashi and I would be going, so it's not like anything sort of an A rank could challenge us, Anko said confidently. Hiruzen started at both shinobi pensively. He knew what they said had merit. Both Anko and Kakashi could easily complete even B ranks. Still, neither of them had ever had a team of genin on a mission before, so he hesitated. The Hokage sighed. Fine, I'll consider it, but only if they pull it off in 2 weeks. 2 weeks? Anko yelled, surprised by the short time frame. Yes, I want this to be a test. If I am going to send them out into the field, then I have to be sure of their talent. But that's a fine time frame, Kakashi cut in. The Hokage was already hesitant and wanted to avoid pushing their luck further. Anko huffed but didn't press the issue any further. I also have 1 more condition. You will oversee a spar between the 3 genin, and I will observe it with the rest of the council. May I ask why? Said Kakashi. I need to show Himura and Kaharu that this team is worth investing in, and if I can show off how much progress they have made, I can change their mind. Danzo isn't on your ass about us, too, asked Anko. Hiruzen shook his head. This seems to be one of the few things he and I agree on. So in 2 weeks, when you guys are going to have your next meeting, Kakashi deduced. Yes, we only set aside a day every month when all 4 of us are together for an extended period. And this time, it's 2 weeks from now. Anko looked at Kakashi. Well, we must be on our A game to complete this. Don't worry, Gramps, we'll have them ready by your meeting. Hiruzen smiled. I have full faith in Team 7, I'm sure your students will impress. All 3 were about to head to the training ground on Monday morning. Anko suggested that they meet before training to start the day. Sasuke was initially hesitant, but it had just become routine after the first few times. They would meet at Naruto's apartment since it was the closest, eat breakfast together, and share notes on their progress. When they arrived, they found their teachers standing with Kakashi, holding 3 small papers in his hand. What's up, brats? Yo. Anko and Kakashi respectfully greeted them. Nothing much, so what are we learning today anyway? Well, today, you will be learning your chakra natures. Sakura raised her hand but quickly lowered it when she realized she was not in a classroom, and then spoke. Isn't that for elemental manipulation? Yeah, normally genin don't learn this until they are ready to become chunin, Anko informed. But, you guys are anything but normal, Kakashi said while holding his trademark eye smile. While his words implied that they were advanced for their age, Kakashi's delivery made them feel more like zoo animals or circus performers. Okay, everybody, line up, Anko ordered rudely, taking the papers out of Kakashi's hand. She then handed one to each genin. What are these, Sensei? Sakura asked. Don't tell me we are going to do a stupid test, said Naruto. These are chakra papers, when you channel chakra into them, they reveal your chakra affinity, informed Anko. Naruto then, unprovoked, began channeling chakra into his paper. His paper was sliced in half down the middle. Oh no, I broke it, Naruto yelled. Devastated he messed up something so simple. Anko snorted. No, brat, you didn't break it, the paper reacts to your chakra affinity, she then batted him lightly on his head. Don't do things before we tell you to do them. Sorry, Naruto apologized as he rubbed his head. Since your paper split in half, you have wind-natured chakra. Cool, Naruto exclaimed. What does that mean, he said as he rubbed the back of his head. Anko sighed. Can you take this one, Kakashi? He shrugged. Well, chakra nature is like how you have a dominant hand in your day-to-day life. There are 5 chakra natures. Fire, wind, earth, lightning, and water. Since you are wind chakra natured, you can mold and control the wind chakra more easily than other elements. Naruto nodded, he understood most of that. Anko looked at the other two and waved her hand. Go ahead. I wanted you to reveal your natures all at once, but since someone jumped the gun, that doesn't matter anymore. She gave a pointed look at Naruto. Sasuke's paper then crumpled up and rose in flames, and Sakura's paper crumbled into earth. So Sasuke, you have a fire and lightning affinity, and Sakura, you have an earth affinity, Anko explained. What are your affinities? Asked Sakura. My affinity is fire, but I know 2 other elements. Earth and wind, but I only know one wind jutsu, said Anko. Lighting is my main affinity, but I can use all 5 chakra natures, thanks to my Sharingan, Kakashi explained. So, what do we do now? Asked Sasuke. Anko thought for a moment. It'll be best for Sasuke to train his lighting affinity with Kakashi, considering he is already used to elemental manipulation, he'll get the hang of it quickly. I know earth manipulation well, but I only got the hang of wind manipulation a few months ago. Are you better at it, Kakashi? Kakashi shook his head. I can use wind jutsu, but it's my worst element. If I didn't have my Sharingan, I doubt I could even mold the chakra correctly. Well, I'm over Naruto's and Sakura's training. Kakashi nodded and motioned for Sasuke to follow him to the other side of the clearing. Anko turned to face Sakura and Naruto and began a lecture. Okay, there are multiple stages to elemental manipulation, but you guys only have to master the first stage for the techniques we will teach you. The first stage is learning to turn your chakra into the element you want to channel. She then addressed Sakura. Okay, Sakura, you'll need to do this for basic earth manipulation. Anko reached down, grabbed a handful of dirt, and closed her hand. After a few seconds, Anko opened her hand and presented a small stone. This earth exercise is about melding the dirt with earth chakra. How am I supposed to channel earth chakra? Asked Sakura. Anko thought for a moment. Imagine your chakra system and think about it being connected to the earth beneath your feet. It should feel like you're almost pulling chakra from the ground and into your hands. She nodded, bent down, and grabbed a handful of dirt. She closed her eyes and began to visualize her chakra system. She imagined herself pulling chakra from the earth. Her chakra felt slower, more heavy, but also more sturdy. She began to focus this feeling on her hand. When Sakura opened her eyes and her hand, some of the dirt had clumped up into a ball before crumbling apart in her hands. Anko gave a nod of, "That's a great first attempt, keep at it, if you need any help, I'm going to be helping Knucklehead over here with his wind manipulation." "Okay, Sensei," said Sakura as she prepared for her second attempt. Anko walked over to Naruto, who was getting impatient. "So what do I do?" Naruto said, hopping up and down. "Calm down here, take this." Anko handed Naruto a leaf. Naruto looked down at the leaf, bewildered. If this is supposed to be a joke, it's not funny. Anko sighed. The leaf is supposed to be the medium for your wind manipulation. Your training will be to split this leaf in half. Naruto ripped the leaf in half. "No, not like that, you idiot. You have to do it with chakra." "Oh, you should have said that." Anko rubbed a hand across her face. "Look, grab a few leaves and make some clones. You don't have Sakura's control, so the extra help will be useful." Naruto created 5 clones. They ran to nearby trees and grabbed some leaves. The 5 clones stood at attention in front of Anko, leaves in hand. "So what do I do?" asked the squad of Narutos. "I'm going to be honest, brat, I have a very shaky grasp of wind manipulation. I just cut the leaf myself a few months back. In my experience, the best way to do it is to visualize your chakra as sharp. It also helps if you try to cut the leaf from both sides. The Narutos nodded and they began to do the exercise. Anko continued to supervise Naruto and Sakura for the next several hours and she had to hide her shock. Despite her confident words with the hokage, she had resigned herself to waiting to start actual missions because even with the progress the team made during the first month, she assumed that they would probably need another month or two before they could start learning elemental jutsu. She figured Sasuke would have no issue with learning his secondary affinity. After spending a month training the boy, it was clear to Anko that the boy was a prodigy. In her youth, Anko considered herself one, but she had nothing on the kid. But here were Sakura and Naruto, making progress in a few hours that took Anko months. And the most incredible thing was how different their approaches were. Sakura had taken to documenting and taking notes of all of her attempts. She would review all her notes between attempts to analyze the best approach. Sakura would sit still with the dirt in her hand, molding the earth slowly. Her attempts would take several minutes, but she made considerable progress each time. Naruto's approach was pure brute force. All of his clones would constantly mold chakra for hours on end. After a while, the clones would stop looking at their progress, and then Naruto would dismiss them, gain their memories, and summon a new batch. It wasn't a refined method, but Naruto had gotten a few centimeters cut into his leaves. This was the first time Anko felt astonished by what her students were doing. Their progress during the first month could be attributed to their putting in the necessary work. The genin showed up to practice on time and stayed late to perfect their new skills. But what progress they were making now was a product of their natural skill and talent. By the end of the first week, all three genin had mastered the first stage of basic elemental manipulation, a skill that took most ninjas years to learn, trimmed down to a few training sessions in between D ranks. When the genin arrived at the training ground the following week, they were greeted by one Kakashi and two Ankos. "Why are there two of you?" asked Naruto. "You guys have made enough progress to where we can teach you some C-rank elemental jutsu. At the end of the week, we want you guys to do a three-way spar to show off your skills. So we want to keep your training separate this week." "Why?" asked Sakura. "In the field, you'll find foes you have no information on. We can simulate some of that in this paper, so you guys have to devise tactics and counters on the fly." All three genin nodded. "Okay, Sasuke, go with Kakashi. Naruto, go with my shadow clone to the east of the training grounds, and Sakura, we can stay here." Once the others left, Anko began her explanation of the jutsu to Sakura. "Okay, so this jutsu is the most versatile earth jutsu there is, it's called the hiding like a mole technique." Sakura raised an eyebrow at the strange name. "Hey, I didn't name it, I just used it. To use this technique, you must manipulate the earth into fine grains to move through it. If you manage to master the technique, you can reshape the earth as you move, leaving behind no trace. It requires no hand signs, but putting your hands into the serpent sign helps you channel the chakra. We will take this slow since it can be pretty scary the first time you attempt this. Just follow my lead and don't freak out." Anko put her hand into the serpent sign, and Sakura followed suit. "Okay, the first thing you want to do is channel the earth's chakra into the ground, but instead of clumping the earth together, break it apart." Anko began to demonstrate, and the dirt around her feet began to break apart into sand. She sank until her feet were ankle deep in the earth. "Okay, I want you to sink this far. Unlike water, when you are on the earth, you always have support, so you can't drown as long as you have control of your jutsu." "Okay, I can do this," Sakura said to herself. Sakura focused and began to channel her chakra into the earth. She felt the earth start to break apart. First, she felt a change in her footing, almost throwing her off balance. "Stay calm. It will feel weird, but the most important thing is to maintain concentration." Okay. She regained her focus and managed to sink to her ankles. "Okay, sink down to your knees and begin to walk around. You have to get used to the feeling of going through the earth." Sakura focused again and sank down to her knees. "Okay, try to mend the earth back as you walk." "Why do I need to do that?" asked Sakura. "In combat, an enemy will notice a disturbed patch of ground. If you can mend the earth back using the technique, then you can maintain stealth." Sakura nodded and began to walk around. It was a struggle at first. The combination of the foreign sensation of being covered in thousands of dirt particles and her inability to see her feet made her hesitate each time she took a step. After some time and a few tips from Anko, Sakura found that she could easily reshape the earth if she rotated her chakra around her. One rotation would break apart the earth and the other would mend it as she moved. After about 30 minutes, Sakura had gotten the hang of moving in the earth. Anko moved on to the final essential part of the jutsu. "Okay, the next part is how you can tell where things are when you're underground. This is technically another jutsu, but it's used so much with this one that it's considered the same." Sakura climbed out of the ground and stood at attention. "It's an earth-based senor jutsu. You channel your chakra through the earth and you can sense the vibrations of anything moving. Above ground, you could probably sense upward of 30 feet around you. Still, you can sense vibrations up to hundreds of feet away underground. Close your eyes, use the earth as a conduit and spread it as far as you can. So, it's like when I move my chakra through someone's system when I cast Genjutsu. Yeah, sorta, but instead of invading, you must sync yourself with the earth. Sakura closed her eyes and placed her hand on the ground. She reached out with her chakra and expanded it outward. She felt the vibrations of Anko's pacing, but the exact direction was unclear. I can sense vibrations but can't tell where they're coming from. Don't focus on the area where you first sense one, focus on the direction from which it came. Anko suggested. Sakura began to focus again on the vibrations. It was almost like following a trail, looking for the origin point. After a few more attempts, she was able to locate Anko. Good job. This technique is not for above-ground sensing, but will be much more helpful when underground. Are you ready to make your first attempt? Asked Anko. Sakura steeled herself. Just 2 months ago, she had never imagined doing something like this. However, this training with her team and teachers gave her purpose instead of the contact drifting she did at the academy. Yes, I'm ready. Okay, the final step is to combine all of them and go into the earth. You can coat yourself in earth chakra to prevent the dirt from getting in your nose, mouth and eyes, but still, be careful. You can breathe with this technique, but I don't think you're ready for that yet. Wait, you can breathe underground. Yeah, if you advanced enough, you can trap air as you go under to give yourself extra time underground, but that's too advanced for you. Focus on going under and rising back up, go at most 15 feet from the surface. Sakura took a deep breath and began channeling chakra into the earth. As she sank, she steadied her breathing. Before her head went completely under, she took one last breath of air and submerged it into the earth. Being underground was a strange feeling. The earth bent to her will and made movement easy, but she still felt claustrophobia and anxiety running through her. What would happen if she ran out of chakra and got stuck down here? Would she be crushed or suffocated slowly in the earth? Her thoughts were interrupted when Sakura was poked in the side by a rock. It brought her focus back onto her current situation as she realized she had lost some control of the jutsu and didn't fully break down the earth around her. She steeled herself from the anxious thoughts and continued down a little further until she stopped. Landing on solid earth in a small self-created cavern, Sakura opened her eyes. She didn't know what she expected, but the total darkness surrounding her didn't do anything to put her at ease. She closed her eyes and began to use the sensor jutsu. She could feel Anko's chakra seeping into the earth and the faint vibrations of trees rustling. She could even sense the faint vibrations from the areas where Naruto and Sasuke were. It was a fantastic feeling to feel so much despite being surrounded in darkness. Her mind made up the colors, the vibrations spread out around her in golden circles from where they occurred, and the chakra from above mixed in like a mist. Sakura wanted to continue to experience this, but she was quickly reminded about her need for air. She quickly moved up. Her ascent was like building a staircase underneath herself as she burst from the ground. She took a deep breath and got an impressed whistle from Anko. The whole 20 seconds. That's a hell of a first attempt. Sakura continued to breathe deeply for a few more seconds before she spoke with labored breaths. Why didn't you tell me about the colors? Asked Sakura. Colors? Anko asked puzzled. The colors of the vibrations and the chakra were beautiful, Sakura said, still in awe of what she experienced. Wait, do you mean the sensor jutsu? All it is supposed to do is give a general idea of where things are located, it's not even meant for chakra signatures, said Anko. But I saw everything, even your chakra. Anko thought for a moment. I wouldn't be surprised that with your Sakura control and all of the visualization training we've done, you probably improved the technique somehow. Sakura stared at her hands in awe. She made a technique. Don't get complacent, Anko said, knocking the girl out of her trance. You still have to practice going in and out of the earth. You have to slip in and out efficiently enough to use it in the field. Sakura nodded and stood back up for another attempt. She had additional motivation for this training and needed to know that what she had done wasn't a fluke. Anko's shadow clone began to speak. Okay, are you ready, brat? I was born ready, Naruto said, excited to begin. This is the only wind technique I know right now, it's called Gale Palm. It has basic hand signs. You put your hands together and channel the wind chakra in a vortex. Vortex? Anko pinched the bridge of her nose. The circle, Naruto. After you channel enough chakra, focus it on one palm, then release it like this. Anko clasped her hands and thrust her right hand forward as she did, and a strong torrent of wind gusted from her palm, riding some dirt particles and making some loose leaves fly into the air. Cool, let me try. Naruto put his hands together and focused intensely on circulating his chakra correctly. He then performed the jutsu. The compressed air exploded, resulting in a more powerful wind, but it traveled less distance. Anko looked thoughtful at the outcome of the technique. "I'm sorry, sis. It looks like my control still needs work," Naruto said, disappointed that he failed. "No, your control was fine. If it was bad, you would have launched the jutsu back at yourself. You just put a lot of chakra into it. Usually, when you overload a technique, it wastes the chakra and fails, but with Gale Palm, it makes the blast stronger." "Does that mean I have to put less chakra into it?" Anko shook her head. "But how I wanted you to use it, it won't matter. This is mainly meant to be used as a utility jutsu. You can use it to propel your weapons forward at a higher speed like this." Anko took out a kunai and threw it. She then performed the Gale Palm again, and the kunai flew forward at a blistering speed and impacted a faraway tree, embedding itself halfway. "Awesome, is that what you want me to do?" "Yeah, it would complement the Shadow Shuriken Jutsu well, but with the power you can put out with it, it would probably be wasted on just that." A realization came over Anko, and a devious smirk came over her mouth. "Oh, Naruto, what is one of your many self-given titles?" asked Anko. "Future Hokage of Konoha." "No, the other one." "The greatest prankster of the leaf." "No, the other one." "The number one most unpredictable ninja." "Exactly, so how would said ninja like to create a new taijutsu style?" Hiruzen and his 3 advisors, Hamura, Kaheru, and Danzo, were in his office. "Okay, old friend, what is this important thing that made you interrupt this meeting?" asked Hamura. "I wanted to talk about Team 7, said Hiruzen. "Again, I keep telling you that you put too much faith into that legacy. I'm sure the kids are doing well, but do they have to be brought up during this meeting?" Kaheru said, annoyed. "Kakashi and Anko came to me with a proposal that if Team 7 could learn elemental manipulation in the next 2 weeks, they could skip the usual probation period genin teams go through. So, not only are you assigning 2 of our best ninjas to them, but you also want to bend the rules for them as well. This is ridiculous. We should be focusing on our current issues, not worrying about some kids who won't be decent ninja a decade from now," said Hamura. "So what do you think about all of this, Danzo? Talk some sense into him," asked Kaheru. Danzo wanted a few moments before he spoke. "Despite not fully agreeing with his reasoning behind it, I agree with what he is doing with Team 7. While Haddock and Matrashi wouldn't have been my first picks as instructors, the lack of training we have given 2 of our most valuable assets in the Nine Tails Jinchuriki and the Uchiha is malpractice. I would have had their training together years ago." "Thank you, Danzo." Hiruzen looked over his. "We are going to watch them spar with one another. I was sent notice that the genin accomplished their goal of mastering elemental manipulation, and they wish to show their results to you to cast away any misgivings you have about their group." "This is ridiculous," said Kaheru. "Trust in me. I want you to put your faith in the next generation. It won't take more than a few minutes. If they don't show enough progress, I'll stop giving them special treatment." "Okay, you guys know the rules. If you think you have to hold back on an attack, do it, and don't hesitate to forfeit if you guys get hurt," Anko said. The genin wanted in anticipation for the start of the spar. Kakashi held his hand up, wanting to signal. "Go." Sakura immediately reached into her tool pouch and tossed a smoke bomb at her feet. Naruto yelled, "Let's go," and performed the shadow clone jutsu. 3 clones appeared, 2 beside him and 1 behind him. They all faced Sasuke, ready to attack. Sasuke was not surprised. Over the past month, Naruto had quickly learned the less is more rule in combat and had made his clones more efficient. Sasuke weaved through hand signs, still keeping an eye on the area where Sakura disappeared, and performed high release Great Dragon Fire technique. He spat out flames that turned into a dragon's head and moved it towards Naruto. Naruto then smirked and shouted, "Uzumaki maneuver body shield wave." Naruto then produced 20 clones and had them all rush forward at the dragon. Once they made contact, the dragon exploded in flames. Naruto used that opportunity to close the distance with Sasuke, and they began to exchange blows. Naruto performed a backstep and created 2 clones behind Sasuke. Sasuke quickly backflipped over a kick performed by one clone and caught a punch from the other one. He then turned and performed a kick to the clone's head, dispersing it and putting a kunai through the other one's neck. Sasuke defeated both clones in a few seconds, but that was long enough for Naruto to make his move. He was on Sasuke's guard and had both hands clasped together. In an instant, his right palm was on Sasuke's stomach. Gale Palm strike. All the air left Sasuke's body as the force from Naruto's attack sent him flying backward into the trees. Before Naruto could celebrate his attack, he felt the ground beneath him rumble and a fist came toward his face. He blocked it with his arms, but it launched him back. His arms ached in pain. "Damn, Sakura hits hard," thought Naruto. She emerged fully from the ground and commented. "Good reflexes, I was sure I had you." She then shifted her weight forward and dashed toward Naruto. He quickly made 3 clones before him to ward off her attack. But as she got close, he began to see 2 of everything. His clones took swings at Sakura but ended up falling over each other. The next thing he knew, Sakura was landing a vicious hook to his face. He was sent spiraling backward onto the ground. Just when Sakura was about to push her advantage, she heard the whooshing of flames from her right. Phoenix Fireball Jutsu. Sasuke fired multiple small fireballs at her. Quickly, she performed the hiding like a mole technique and slipped back into the ground. So that's how she's hiding, thought Sasuke. Shuriken Shadow Clone Jutsu. Naruto recovered and launched 3 shuriken that turned into 15. Sasuke, realizing he couldn't dodge the shuriken without taking at least getting a scratch, decided to use his new lighting jutsu. Lighting style depth charge. Sasuke began to channel lighting chakra around his body and he released it, knocking the shuriken away. Naruto began to charge again at Sasuke with clones. He and Sasuke continued to fight at close range, with Sasuke being much more cautious, not wanting to get hit again by Naruto's wind technique. In the following exchange, Naruto made 3 clones and sent 2 of them forward. He then put his hands together and jumped off the back of the 3rd clone directly towards Sasuke in an attempt to attack him from multiple angles. Sasuke evaluated his options. Even if Naruto wasn't close, the winds from it could easily knock him off balance, leaving him vulnerable to attacks from his clones. Sasuke also didn't have any counters to wind jutsu. Just when Sasuke thought he was out of options, Naruto's eyes changed slightly and he went off balance. Naruto's aim was off and he sent his Gale Palm attack straight down at his clones. This also pushed Naruto further into the air, sending him flying toward the trees. Just as he was about to thank Sakura internally, the ground exploded under him and he felt a fist drive into his gut. Surprised, he fell onto his knees and looked around for Sakura, but he didn't see her. Getting flashbacks from the bell test, he quickly tried to jump into the air, but Sakura's hand burst through the ground, grabbing his ankle and pulling him down. He promptly began channeling lighting chakra on instinct and performed a depth charge, expelling lighting from his body. He heard a scream of pain and felt Sakura's hand let go. As he climbed out of the hole, he felt exhausted. Had he used that much chakra? 20 feet away, Sakura emerged from the ground, hair a mess and clothing slightly singed. Naruto lay tangled in the branches of a tree, directing some clones to get him out. Anko and Kakashi looked at each other and decided this was a good place to end the spar. After a few minutes, the genin were gathered and all looked a little worse for wear. Good job, guys. There are a few things you guys have to work on. Naruto, Sakura caught you in 2 low-rank Genjutsu. We will be doing extra reps in your disruption training. Naruto groaned. Sasuke, I think you did well, but you were a little too gung-ho with your ninjutsu. I know you probably wouldn't be that careless in the field, but this is a good lesson in learning how to pace yourself in fights that are going to last more than a few seconds. It's a problem for many ninjas, including me, said Kakashi. Sasuke nodded, accepting the criticism. Sakura, you did well in utilizing your techniques, but you could have been more aggressive early. Sometimes opportunities won't appear as they did in this fight, so you are going to have to learn how to create your own, said Anko. Thanks, Sensei, said Sakura. Okay, you guys should head on over to the hospital and get yourselves checked out. We're done for today, said Anko. Anko and Kakashi arrived at the Hokage's office. The secretary spoke. Oh, the Hokage is expecting you. Go ahead and head on in. Walking inside, they found the Hokage blowing some smoke rings while taking a brief respite from his paperwork. Hiruzen acknowledged their entrance with a nod. So, did those old farts approve us for C ranks? Asked Anko. Hiruzen smiled. Come by in the next few days and I'll have a mission ready for Team 7. On 100 likes, part 2 will be uploaded. For now, do check out this video. Just click on it and I will see you all there.